Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes master of Fuinjutsu, and Yin Yang release part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Izumi Uchiha walked down the dusty street leading to the Hokage's office. She, and her older brother Baisho, had been summoned by Lord Third first thing this morning. The Uchiha siblings didn't believe this to be mission-related, but they weren't sure. All around Izumi were the signs that the civilians were just starting to prepare for the day. Shops were opening and breakfast stands had been serving food for the last hour. She would have liked to stop and get something to eat, but duty always came first. The young girl noticed several kids from her academy class and waved. They would smile back until their eyes met her brother's. Izumo sighed sadly at this because she wanted Baisho to let her have friends that had other last names besides Uchiha. Their mother died soon after having her, and their father had been executed when Izumi was 5. So her then 12-year-old brother became her primary caretaker. The slightly annoyed girl gave her brother a pouting look. At 15 her brother was a typical Uchiha, very stock and antisocial. He has been a jounin of the Leaf Village ever since the age of 13. He was very thin with the charcoal black eyes of the clan and a short but wild hairstyle of pure white locks. He was wearing his uniform with black paints and chunin vest. The Leaf Village forehead protector was on his left arm and armored forearm guards were on his wrists. They arrived at the building and walked up to the guards. Her brother spoke for them both in his usual monotone voice. Uchiha Baisho and Uchiha Izumi here to see Lord Hokage. He is expecting us. The blonde-haired Hyuga on the right looked them both over before allowing the siblings to pass. Izumi smiled politely at him even though her brother gave no real acknowledgement. They made their way to the secretary's office where they noticed a small red-headed boy, with whisker marks on his cheek, sitting by her desk. The small boy was wearing a white shirt with a spiral on the front and black shorts. The 4-year-old was sitting quietly hunched over and was trying not to be noticed. Izumi felt bad for the little guy. He was Naruto Uzumaki, son of Kushina Uzumaki, and 4 years ago the 4th Hokage used him to stop the rampage of the nine-tailed fox, a giant fox that tried to destroy the village. Unfortunately, the Hokage couldn't kill it, so he sealed the monster into Naruto, dying in the process. Many people saw the boy as the demon despite the fact he had never committed one violent act during his entire life. As a result of the constant negative attitude towards him, Naruto had developed into an incredibly quiet and shy child. The secretary glanced up at both visitors. Lord Hokage explained to send you both in the moment you arrived. He has important matters to discuss. Baisho walked to the office door and knocked. He then opened the door after hearing enter and walked inside with Izumi following him. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third fire shadow of Hidden Leaf, sat behind his desk deep in thought. He was about to do something that could very well blow up in his face. After a new technique was developed by the medical staff at the hospital, several orphan children had been tested by chakra to see if they had any family within the village. So far not many had been shown to have any close relatives, but Naruto had. How the old man wished he could restore that bastard Uchiha to life just so he could execute him again, just more slowly, for what he did to Kushina. The wise old man watched as the 2 young Uchiha he had been waiting for walked into his office. One, at least on paper, was a promising jounin and his sister was top kunoichi of her academy class. The main problem with the Uchiha was their loyalty, except for 2, was unquestioned at the moment. The attack of the Nine Tails 4 years ago had made many people who knew the full truth about the Uchiha's visual powers wonder if the clan had been behind it. The attack achieved the death of Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, who the Uchiha hated because they believed he stole the Hokage set from Fugaku Uchiha, their current clan leader. The elders and Danzo were not convinced that Hiruzen was making the right choice, despite the benefits to Naruto. Danzo had even claimed this could very well be the third's greatest failure, but the old man was determined to see this through for Naruto's sake. Minato had loved Kushina with all his heart despite politics forcing him to take another as his wife, and had made Hiruzen swear to do all in his power to see the boy had a happy life. After the events of that dark day 4 years ago, many had speculated that the 4th was Naruto's father. However, a simple blood seal provided by Jiraiya had disproved that theory. The Hokage sighed to himself as the 2 Uchihas sat down in front of his desk, mentally preparing himself for the unpleasant talk he would soon be having. Izumi combed her long brown hair behind her shoulders and gave him a cute smile. It broke the old man's heart that this little girl's family could very well lead her straight to her own grave. If what Itachi Uchiha and Shursui Uchiha reported was true, then the Uchiha had begun to seriously plot to overthrow the Leaf Village and seize control by force. There was still time to stop it, and Hiruzen hoped that this act today could help lead to peace and prevent war. Thank you both for coming, Sarutobi said as he pulled 2 files from his desk drawer. He passed each visitor one and sat back. Before you are case files regarding a jounin that died 4 years ago. She was a powerful kunoichi and Fuinjutsu mistress that died during childbirth the day Kyubi attacked. When Kushina Uzumaki turned up pregnant, an investigation was launched to uncover the name of the father. She admitted that it was possible that she had drunk too much one night and blacked out. We never uncovered the man, and no one ever stepped forward. Izumi sat confused by the conversation as she wasn't entirely sure where the Hokage was headed. Baisho, however, knew exactly what Hiruzen was going to say and began to get angry, not that his stone face showed any signs of anger though. There were things he never told his sister regarding why their father had been executed, and this old fool was about to explain it better than he had ever done. After the hospital invented a new technique to find family relations through chakra, I ordered the technique to be used on Naruto. The old man lit his pipe and took a pull. As you will both see, this closed the case on the father of Naruto Uzumaki. Taking the unspoken order, both siblings opened their copies in front of them. They read the investigation report from over 4 years ago and the recent conclusion to the case. Baisho knew it was coming but still felt a spark of rage when he read his own father's name in the indicating margin. No way! Naruto Uzumaki is our little brother. Are you sure, sir? Izumi stated, shocked. Hiruzen Sarutobi studied the girl closely. She was staring at the paper in complete shock, but also wonder and excitement. He was expecting many reactions to this revelation, but not happiness. It did make him feel better about his decision seeing the girl was excited about getting a little brother, but anyone who knew their father's backstory and the reason for his execution would be able to connect the dots. He looked to Baisho for answers and received them in his angry eyes. His sister didn't know the reason for their father's execution. This is big, this is huge. I mean, Naruto is our half-brother. Maybe Dad and Kushina met up one night, and one thing led to another. Dad probably didn't want to admit to having an affair with someone so much younger than him. Izumi, Hiruzen interrupted. In the back of the report you will find an official medical valuation that Lady Uzumaki was never shown. We decided to keep it from her as it would only have upset Lady Kushina, and she had enough emotional problems with being a single mother. That, and she was also a Jinchuriki, Sarutobi thought to himself. Curiously, the young girl flipped to the back of the report, while Baisho closed his and set it down on the desk. He didn't need to read what he already knew. Sarutobi watched sadly as the girl's curiosity turned to shock, then horror as the truth was made clear to her. There were signs that someone used a memory-altering genjutsu on Lady Kushina. Dad erased her mind afterwards. Why? Izumi asked the Hokage, even though she knew the answer. She just wanted someone to tell her she guessed wrong. Do you know why your father was executed, Izumi? Sarutobi asked. He was found guilty of sexual assault on a chunin. Karina Yuhi came to me and explained how she had been walking home after drinks with friends, when your father Akari Uchiha placed her under a paralysis genjutsu. He then took her back to her place where he proceeded the assault. Afterwards, he tried to erase her mind, but he was never able to advance his Sharingan to its most powerful state. The best he ever achieved was one tomo in each eye. Kurenai is a highly skilled genjutsu user and was able to fool your father into believing his jutsu worked. So, the village sentenced him to death? Izumi asked, still in shock. No, we gave him a choice. He could live his life in prison after his eyes were removed, or he could die with his eyes. He chose to keep his eyes. Sarutobi watched the girl closely, trying to gauge her thoughts. She was saddened by the truth apparently, but was she sadder for her father or his victims? She hid her emotions behind a mask of stone, regaining her composure. This is horrible, but it is not the main concern. What do we do about Naruto, Lord Hokage? Hiruzen took another long pull on his pipe, taking note of the 9-year-old's Uchiha game face. I leave that decision to you and your brother. You can do nothing, simply walk away, and Naruto never needs to know anything. You can also accept him and take your little brother home to live with you as a family. However, if you do this, there will be stipulations. Izumi turned to stare impassively at her brother and see how he would answer, but Baisho wasn't fooled by the blank, emotionless face at all. His sister wanted to take Naruto home today and would throw a fit if they left without him. The older boy stared at the Hokage, cursing him silently. On one hand, the small child was the village's weapon, a Jinchuriki, and on the other hand, he was hated by most of the village. If the Uchiha took guardianship over the weapon, then it could put them in a negative light. The clan could also try to forcibly make Baisho and Izumi give up custody after they had already accepted it, which would place the siblings in a very negative light with the Hokage and anyone else who would be sympathetic to Naruto. The older boy would have liked to discuss this with the clan first, but he could tell Hiruzen wanted an answer now. To buy time to think, he asked. What is the stipulation, sir? Naruto is heir to the Uzumaki clan and as such shall remain Uzumaki. The Uchiha cannot attempt to gain insight or ownership of Uzumaki-based techniques or abilities through Naruto. I will still act as Naruto's regent until he comes of age and will make decisions for the Uzumaki clan's best interest. Once again, Baisho felt irritated. Control over the Uzumaki fortune would have done wonders for the Uchiha and helped them to accept custody of Naruto. Something the Hokage said was also mainly directed at him, as the old fool didn't know Izumi was aware of the 9 tails sealed within Naruto. With Hiruzen in control of all matters pertaining to Naruto's well-being, then the Uchiha clan couldn't train him to control the fox's chakra, not without the Hokage's permission. They couldn't even tell him about it. Realizing there was only one thing to do, especially with his sister sitting right next to him, which was probably why the Hokage invited her to attend in the first place, Baisho said, "We will adopt Naruto, sir." For the first time since the meeting started, Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled. He reached into one of his desk drawers and pulled out 2 sheets of paper. One would give him control over the Uzumaki clan and the other would make Baisho Naruto's legal guardian. After the Jounin signed both sheets, the Hokage pressed a button on his desk and spoke to his secretary. "Please send in Naruto." Izumi turned towards the door when she heard it open. Standing in the threshold was the little redhead she saw earlier, nervously tapping his fingers together. Since he wasn't quietly staring at the floor, Izumi could see his chocolate-colored eyes. The young girl wanted to hug him but knew he would probably be scared if she did. Naruto closed the door and made his way to the Hokage's desk, where he stood off to the side away from everyone. Baisho was also studying his little brother. He could tell by the color of his eyes he was definitely an Uzumaki. If an Uchiha had any other eye color besides black, then their chances of awakening the Sharingan were almost non-existent. As far as Baisho was concerned, Naruto would never be a ninja, not with his lack of spine or skill. The third Hokage looked at the small boy kindly. "Naruto, I would like you to meet Baisho and Izumi Uchiha. You and they share the same father, Ikari Uchiha. They are your siblings, and from today onward you shall live with them." Naruto just looked at the Hokage slack-jawed. The one thing he had always wanted was family, and now his surrogate grandfather just told him he had one. The Jinchuriki looked both siblings over, taking note of his sister's long brown hair and nice smile. He glanced at his brother and saw a face of stone with judgmental eyes. The girl stood up and put her face directly in front of Naruto's, giving him a much bigger smile. "Hi." The redhead gulped. Only Lord Hokage really ever talked to him. Most people either ignored his existence or treated him angrily. Hello?" he managed to stutter out. Izumi felt sad by his shyness, so she gave him a hug. The little boy didn't know what to do, so he awkwardly hugged her back. When they broke apart, she sat back down and placed Naruto in her lap. Sarutobi watched the scene smiling. No matter what, this had been the right decision. Baisho said nothing, nor did he make any motion to hold his brother. "If that is all, Lord Hokage, I will take my siblings and go. I need to inform the clan about this development, and I'm sure they're both hungry," Baisho said in his monotone manner. At Sarutobi's nod, all 3 siblings left, Naruto holding Izumi's hand and waving goodbye at his grandfather. The Hokage was reaching for his pipe when he heard from outside. Well, that was unexpected. "Jiraiya, why are you skulking outside my window on a private conversation?" Sarutobi asked, lighting up his pipe once again. He looked up to see the legendary Toad Sage step into the room. His old student was dressed in his standard garb, with his white hair was long, as always. He passed Sarutobi a little orange book as he picked up one of the case files that were left on the desk. The third quickly hid the book in a secret drawer, blushing slightly. "I came to check on my goddaughter and to give you important information on Orochimaru," the sage said as he studied the old picture of Kushina. "So it was that bastard Ikari that fathered Naruto. Do you think it wise giving the Uchiha control of the 9 tails?" The third let out a cloud of smoke, looking up at Jiraiya. "I did not give the Uchiha control of Kyuubi. I gave Naruto to his only family." "You have really lost it if you think the Uchiha won't use this opportunity to their advantage. If memory serves me right, Kaya Uchiha, Baisho and Izumi's mother, was an amateur Fuinjutsu user. They probably still have her scrolls." Sarutobi could only agree with Jiraiya, as the man made a good point. Though in honesty, Naruto getting his hands on a bunch of Fuinjutsu scrolls wasn't real a bad thing. Also, Naruto will have to go through the Clan Restoration Act, so having an Uchiha wife wouldn't really give the Uchiha any real control over future generations of Uzumaki. If they tried playing matchmaker, it would be wasted effort. Only time would truly tell if Sarutobi has made the right choice today. Outside on the street, Baisho was saying his goodbyes to his younger siblings. "I need to go and inform the clan on what's happened." He then handed Izumi his wallet. "Take Naruto and get something to eat, but try not to be too long. I'm going to request a larger apartment since there's 3 of us, and we may have to move today." "Okay, big brother, we'll be home soon." Izumi said, smiling. She looked down at Naruto when Baisho used the Fuinjutsu to leave. She was greeted by the funny face Naruto was making at the sight of seeing the technique for the first time. She laughed a little, which gained his attention, and asked, "So, what do you want to eat, Naruto-chan?" The boy blushed a little at his sister's teasing and said in a quiet voice, "Can we get ramen?" "Ramen?" Izumi asked, disappointed. She wasn't a very big fan of salty noodles, however this would be the first meal she shared with her little brother, and she had asked him what he wanted. She also didn't want to disappoint the shy little cutie. "Fine, ramen it is. Do you want to go somewhere specific?" Naruto nodded his head happily and grabbed Izumi's hand. He then began pulling her towards the greatest place on earth, in his mind anyway, Ichiraku Ramen. Izumi smiled at seeing her brother come out of his shell a little. Her smile faded though as they made their way down the street. Everywhere she looked, Izumi saw angry faces and cold eyes staring at Naruto. The boy knew of their presence as well. He stopped pulling his sister and instead walked quietly by her leg, looking down at the ground. He was still guiding her in a more subdued manner. The older girl got tired of this and began to glare back but at the civilians, but it wasn't so effective coming from a 9-year-old Uchiha that had yet to awaken their Sharingan. Not much longer the brother and sister arrived at the ramen stand. An older man was busy helping other customers, so a girl around Izumi's age walked up to them. She smiled at the redhead. "Hi Naruto-kun. Who's your new friend?" Izumi was happy to see someone being nice to her little brother. She also noticed the ramen girl studying her closely to determine what she was doing with Naruto. Deciding to put the girl with light brown hair at ease, the Uchiha explained. "Name's Izumi Uchiha. I just learned Naruto-kun here is my half-brother since we share the same father. He'll be living with me and our older brother from now on." Ayam's face broke out in a wide happy smile. This was some of the best news she had heard in a while. She loved Naruto like a little brother ever since Lord Hokage brought him here a year ago, and had wished her own father could adopt him. He had apparently tried, but because of clan politics the civilian council denied the application. Apparently, they couldn't turn down a blood connection. Tochi approached hearing Izumi's statement. "Well, isn't that something? So, who's the lucky guy that caught Kushina's heart?" Izumi cringed before saying, "Uchiha Ikari." The old ramen chef froze at the name, giving Izumi a hard look the young girl knew wasn't really directed at her. Not even 30 minutes ago the man's face would have confused her, but now she knew the truth. She took a sad look at her little brother, who was smiling shyly at his friend Ayam, and wondered what she would say to him when he inevitably asked about their father. How did you tell someone so innocent and sweet that their father was a monster and you were living proof of his crimes? Tochi looked at Ayam and said, "Can you see to Mr. Takiji? He wants a large miso ramen with 3 orders of pork." Ayam left reluctantly. Mr. Takiji was a mean fat man that had once made a rude comment about rats and vermin being allowed in restaurant when he came in and saw Naruto eating at the counter. Luckily, Naruto didn't know the man was talking about him and ignored the comment. Tochi heard and told the man if he didn't like the way he ran his business then he could go somewhere else. The fat man sat down as he liked ramen as much as Naruto himself, and nothing more had been said, but Ayam still remembered that day and had not forgiven the bastard. She fixed his ramen with the older pork and noodles from the night before and added a large helping of spit when no one was looking. She walked up to fat civilian and said, smiling, "Here you go, Mr. Takiji, enjoy." Meanwhile, Tochi had brought Izumi and Naruto a shrimp and miso ramen. He was distracting the little Uzumaki from inquiring about his father by telling him a funny story about a 9-year-old Kushina eating herself sick the first time she visited the stand. Apparently, she challenged one of the Akimichi clan to an eating contest. She managed to win, but when she jumped up to crow about her victory, she made herself sick and threw up. The Hokage made her spend the night at the hospital for observation and to take some horrible-tasting medicine to fix her stomach. Naruto was smiling and laughing quietly while Izumi was silently thanking the older man for the distraction. Ayam returned when all the customers were taken care of to talk more with Izumi. Her father had approached her in the back and explained not to ask questions about Uchiha Ikari and that he would explain why later. After all, it was only a matter of time before the whole village found out. While Izumi was talking with Ayam, Naruto ordered a beef ramen and a pork ramen. When Izumi finished talking with Ayam, she turned to check on her little brother and froze. She had never seen a stack of bowls that high before. She had figured on this being a relatively inexpensive meal since ramen didn't cost much. She also didn't figure a small boy could eat that much, but Naruto had actually eaten more already than the 2 Akimichi students in her class, and he was reaching for the menu again. Baisho was going to kill her. "Naruto, we need to get going soon. Big brother will want us home." "Ha ha," Izumi said while scratching the back of her head and laughing nervously. Naruto looked at the menu disappointedly. He sighed sadly and reached for his wallet that the Hokage gave him. Izumi reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. What are you doing, Naruto? Baisho gave me money to buy breakfast so you don't need to pay. Oh, that's okay. I ate more than you, so I don't mind paying. Naruto explained quietly, blushing. Izumi could help but agree with him, glancing at the stack of bowls. It's fine, Naruto, you probably won't get the stipend from the village anymore since you're living with us now. So you should save your money. Naruto placed his wallet back in his pocket, and Izumi counted out the money from Baisho's. Ayam was giving her a real smile as she took the money from the Uchiha. Izumi was a little annoyed when she realized that this was probably a common occurrence, and the ramen girl had distracted her on purpose. She picked her brother up and gave him a fast sprint piggyback ride all the way home. She was glad to hear him give out a loud laugh finally. Meanwhile, Baisho was leaving an emergency meeting that had been held at Fugaku Uchiha's house. After explaining the circumstances behind Naruto's conception, the clan leader had immediately sent for every senior Uchiha clan member to explain the issue and discuss a possible course of action. Most were not pleased by what they heard. Even dismissing the fact his brother was the village's Jinchuriki, the story would remind the civilians of a great shame committed by an Uchiha. His father's trial and execution were what led to him and Izumi being ostracized from the clan and forced to live on the outskirts of the clan's compound. The Uchiha Jounin seethed with anger at the memory. He had known of his father's crimes before anyone. He knew how many young women and girls he had seduced through genjutsu because his father would get drunk and brag. Ikari Uchiha could never get his Sharingan to fully mature, but it was still a Sharingan and had power. The Hidden Leaf Village was one of the most powerful villages in the world solely because the Uchiha called it home, even though they weren't shown the proper respect by the village. If his father took liberties of the less worthy kunoichi who were too weak to defend themselves, and who should be grateful the Uchiha clan was here in the first place, then it was their fault for being weak. As far as Baisho was concerned, they killed his father because he was proof that even a weaker than average Uchiha was still stronger than the least strongest ninja. Those damned elders and the shinobi council. The white-haired boy forcibly calmed himself down, thinking back to the meeting. One good thing was he and his siblings would be given a small house in the compound's main area where the head family lived. They would also be given a much larger allowance by the clan than what one would expect for a family of 3. Lady Mikoto had insisted upon it. When those present argued how unfair the stipend would be too high for a family of 3, Fugaku's wife had laughed. She then explained. Baisho isn't feeding a family of 3 Uchiha, he is feeding 2 Uchiha and 1 Uzumaki. Though Baisho didn't fully get the explanation, it had made every older man and woman present shut up about the stipend. This made the boy fear for his wallet that he had left with his sister. Fugaku had then inquired about any stipulations the Hokage may have made upon Naruto's adoption. This caused some sour faces after Baisho had explained the old man would have greater control over the redhead than the Uchiha would. The fact they couldn't train Naruto to use the fox's chakra to better help the clan's interests had made several sore. They also talked about an eye transplant, but this too was also shot down as the Hokage would never agree to it. Once again, Lady Mikoto came to the rescue and said they should send a formal request to Sarutobi in having Naruto trained by Uchiha Ojo, the clan's current Fuinjutsu expert. Lord Fugaku himself had wrote it up and sent it along with the Chunin to be delivered immediately. One brave Jounin had voiced the most troubling question. What do we do about public relations regarding the scandal this will cause? It won't take many to connect the dots after hearing Ikari is Naruto's father. The mood within the room had grown truly dark then as the clan was reminded of its public shame. Fugaku spoke up harshly. We will not draw attention to what is obvious. When inquirers come we will tell the truth as lying is pointless. Baisho and Izumi will refrain from making any statement to fellow Leaf citizens and shinobi, they are to simply say it is private. If any damage control is needed, Mikoto and I will handle it. Baisho remembered the look on Mikoto's face at the question. The look of pure rage on her pretty face had confused him for a second, until he remembered overhearing once that she and Kushina had been close friends. It was even possible that their friendship had led to the assault, since it is possible the Uzumaki had first caught his father's eyes when she had visited Mikoto. They could have even been drinking the night it happened. Baisho didn't care one way or another, Naruto was proof his mother had been weak and nothing more. Coming up on his apartment front door, he saw both Itachi and Shursui waiting for him. Can I help you? He asked, studying both visitors. Itachi looked up at the older boy and said, My mother asked us to help you move. Shursui gave no response. Baisho led both boys inside, looking around for his younger siblings. Neither were present at the moment. He turned to his guests. Izumi took Naruto to get something to eat. We'll wait for them if neither of you mind. Shursui leaned against the wall by the door, studying Baisho. He knew without a doubt that this man was a traitor to Konoha. This fool placed the blame for his father's death purely on the village and not on Ikari himself. He was probably the only Uchiha that thought that way, since many had wanted to kill the bastard themselves. Unfortunately, only half wanted to kill him because of what he did to fellow Leaf Kunoichi. The rest wanted to kill him primarily because he was caught and embarrassed the clan. How do you plan on teaching Naruto? Shursui asked in hopes of gaining insight he could later give Lord Hokage. Hiruzen had been reluctant to kill of the more powerful Uchiha with suicide missions despite Danzo, the elders, and both loyal Uchiha saying to do so. Danzo and the elders wanted the powerful threats removed, while Itachi and Shursui hoped the clan would call the rebellion off if they lost enough fighters. I'm not sure if there is anything I can really teach him. Judging by his eye color, he will never awaken the Sharingan. I'll probably just let Izumi teach him until he goes to the academy. He may one day be a competent genin. The stupid fool commented offhandedly. Shursui watched Itachi's eyes narrow at Beisho's words, no doubt thinking of his own little brother Sasuke. Fugaku often favored Itachi over Sasuke, which left the younger brother attention-starved. As a result, Sasuke would often chase after his older brother because their father was rather unapproachable. Shursui knew just how much Itachi loved his younger brother, and to see Baisho talking bad about Naruto was hitting a nerve in the young protege. One of both Itachi and Shursui's worries was that the third Hokage would want to spare Baisho for Naruto's sake. If anything, the radical Uchiha's reaction regarding his little brother suggested getting him out of the picture would help Naruto's emotional development. The Genjutsu master wouldn't underestimate the older Uchiha though. Baisho was highly skilled in elemental ninjutsu and was said to have one of the more powerful Sharingan eyes present in the clan. A discrepancy in a mission report that involved the death of a fellow Leaf ninja, one Baisho had been good friends with, made Shursui question just how powerful those eyes really were. Glancing at Itachi, Shursui was actually worried the 9-year-old boy would attack the 15-year-old, when Izumi and Naruto walked in through the front door. The little boy realized there were strangers present and hid behind his sister's leg. Izumi wasn't fazed, unlike her obviously annoyed older brother, and grabbed Naruto under his armpits, holding him up like a cat. This little cutie is my little brother Naruto. Naruto, this is Itachi-kun and Shursui. They're both Uchiha and friends of mine. The obviously uncomfortable boy tapped his hands in front of himself protectively. Hello? Itachi smiled politely, trying to be nice. Hello Naruto, we've come to help your older siblings move. Naruto looked down shyly as his sister sat him down. She then turned to ask Baisho. We're moving already? Yes. The clan didn't have any large enough apartments close, so they are relocating us to a small house in the middle of the compound. We won't be far from the main family home actually. Shursui stood up and produced several scrolls from a pouch on his belt. He passed them out to everyone except Naruto and explained. We can seal everything into these storage scrolls to make packing easier. Izumi grabbed one and walked to her room with Naruto following close behind her. The little boy stood in the threshold curiously looking around. For the most part the room was very empty, only a few plants by the window on the right side and a futon for sleeping. His sister walked to the closet on the left, and began talking her clothes and neatly folding them on her futon. She looked to the small boy smiling and said, Come here Naruto-kun, I'll show you how to use the storage scroll. The little boy happily stood by his sister as she sealed her belongings. She placed the scroll on the ground and unrolled it. She began making hand signs slowly so Naruto could follow, then slammed her hands on top of the funny drawings inside the scroll. Naruto watched fascinated as ink spread out from the paper like spiderweb until it covered his sister's stuff. Finally, everything disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto smiled at the sight. Izumi placed the scroll in her side pocket of her black pants, and then placed Naruto on her hip and walked out of her old room. The little Uzumaki snuggled sleepily into the 9-year-old's side, feeling happy and safe for the first time in his almost 5 years. Neither sibling knew that a dark cloud would soon fall over the Uchiha in only 1 month's time. How Naruto would be forced to rise to the occasion to save another child, and how it would change him forever. Izumi's house. Izumi Uchiha sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling in front of her. Looking around the empty room she and her brothers had shared meals for the last month filled her with great sadness. She hated the silence that filled the house as there was nothing to distract her from worrying. She hated the fact the Uchiha clan had been forced to move to the outskirts of the village after the Kyuubi attack because it meant she lived so far away from the hospital. She hated the fact her little brother was there right now fighting for his life and, by order of the Hokage, no Uchiha was allowed anywhere near him. However, the thing she truly hated most and wanted to destroy made her the saddest, the one who placed Naruto in danger by offering him up as a sacrificial lamb, her older brother Baisho. Hanging on the wall opposite of the young Kunoichi were 3 pictures in honor of their parents. 2 on the left were of her mom and dad encircled by a silver flowery wreath. On the right by itself was a picture of Kushina Uzumaki placed in the middle of the Uzumaki clan symbol, which was painted on the wall in green. This had been done by Izumi herself because she wanted to make Naruto feel as welcome as possible. No one had yet to tell him the circumstances of his birth. Izumi simply told him she never knew his mom and their dad knew each other. That was why no one ever suspected they could be related. Things had been going so well, and then the assassination attempt on Itachi. Earlier that morning, an unknown man, dressed all in black, made his way silently from vantage point to vantage point, studying the compound his target lived. His orders from his leader had been clear: eliminate Uchiha Itachi at all costs. The village command had heard from spies within Konoha of an Uchiha protege unlike any that had seen since Madara himself. No one in command back home wanted to see this 9-year-old boy, already a genin, make it to adulthood. The ninja was calm as he watched the comings and goings of those within the compound. It helped him quite a lot the Uchiha lived on the outskirts of the village, so far away from ANBU patrol routes. So far, he hadn't had any close calls, but now came the hard part. He had to slip in unnoticed, kill his already skilled target, and leave without anyone knowing he had been there. If Ka was dead, there was no way his village could take responsibility for this action without starting a war. The man saw an opening to finally get inside. A civilian man wearing the Uchiha crest on his shirt came walking by under the tree he sat quietly in. The assassin dropped down as silent as wind and knocked the slightly overweight man out with a chop to the neck. He dragged him of the road and into the trees, where he began his special jutsu for infiltration. Using a basic genjutsu, in which the irony was not lost on him, he learned the man's name and a few other key facts. All anyone saw was Jin Uchiha walking home after a long day of work. The assassin had a basic grasp of where his target would be and how to kill him. The plan was simple, if cold and cowardly. He would use a poison that was spread untouched that attacked the heart. All he needed to do was find Uchiha Sasuke and let him carry the deadly payload to his older brother. The poison in question was a recent invention that his village had developed only 2 months ago. The reason it was being used was because no one had seen it before, and it couldn't be traced back to his homeland. There was a common antidote to the poison, but by the time the leaf administered it, Itachi's heart would be so ate up there would be no way to save him. Another good thing about the poison was it worked faster on someone who had more chakra. Itachi would die before anyone even knew Sasuke was sick. Walking down the main road, Jin Uchiha greeted everyone he met with a smile and wave. Passing a small flower shop, an old lady offered him a free rose for his lovely daughter, but he kindly refused and walked on looking for Fugaku's youngest son. It wasn't long before he spotted his target. He looked for the largest house on the street, as that would be the home of Wicked Eye Fugaku. Walking around the home, as if heading down a side street, he saw a young boy with dark hair kicking and punching a training log. The little guy was giving it all he was worth, which was apparently a lot, and made the assassin think taking out the younger brother was just as important as killing the older brother. The assassin quickly hid in some shrubs to await his chance to infect Sasuke. There weren't many people around since most were at school, work, or missions. There were still the elderly and the stay-at-home parents to watch out for. Sensing there was no one around, he made his move. Using a basic Shunshin jutsu, the assassin moved to grab the back of the kid's neck. His hand grabbed the boy just as a much slender hand grabbed his wrist. Standing next to him was an extremely angry-looking mother, Mikoto Uchiha. "My mother just visited me. She had something remarkably interesting to tell me about you, Jin. Apparently you were acting rather peculiar this morning as you returned from your night clerk shift at the Gold Bears Inn. When she offered you a rose for your lovely daughter, you failed to remind her proudly how you only have sons." Damn, was the only thought to cross the assassin's mind as he broke the woman's hold on his wrist. He tried to horizontally kick Mikoto in the side of the head, but the Uchiha matriarch countered by grabbing the offered right leg and kicking out Jin's left knee. Shit, good thing this isn't my real body, the assassin thought as he cancelled his infiltration jutsu. Living flesh concealment jutsu release. Little Sasuke watched horrified as the fight began. When he felt someone grab his neck, he turned to see his mom holding the wrist of a fellow Uchiha. He then watched his clansman attack his mom only to get his leg broke. The little boy thought the fight was over, but the unknown Uchiha released some technique he never heard of and vomited a whole other person from his mouth. The new man, all dressed in black, ran away with his mom right behind him. The little Uchiha watched his mommy throw a butcher's knife at the attacker's head and remembered seeing her use that same knife to cut tomatoes as he walked out the back door. Mikoto disappeared around the house, still chasing the assailant. Sasuke looked down to check on the fallen Uchiha, and saw that he was very still and pale. His eyes were wide open, but he didn't appear to see anything. Sasuke fell to his but when he realized the man was dead. His eyes began to water as his grandmother swooped down and picked his up. "My little ninja, are you okay? Did that man hurt you?" she asked frantically. Mikoto's mother then looked down and saw the dead body of Jin. She teared up seeing her friend, thinking of his poor sons. It was then the elderly lady felt a powerful pain in her heart. She fell over backwards, dead before hitting the ground, still holding her grandson in her arms. A few hours later, Uchiha Ojo sat silently watching young Naruto practice his kanji. The objective was to write it as fast and correctly as possible while trying to not make mistakes. So far, his handwriting was above average for a boy of 4, but his speed was still quite slow. The old Uchiha didn't mind this as he was a rather patient man. At the age of 90, Ojo had no wife, children, or grandchildren to dote on. He had lost his wife 15 years ago to a heart attack. She had been a member of the Hyuga branch family. Their marriage had been approved by each clan's elders, on the stipulation that their kids would belong to the family their dojutsu belonged with. The stipulation was a moot point, though they tried no baby ever graced their home. As they both got older, they began to see the children of both clans as grandchildren and turned their affections towards them. There had been many sad-eyed Hyuga and Uchiha children at Kagame's funeral. After the Hokage approved of the Fuinjutsu training for Naruto, Fugaku and Baisho had approached Ojo personally. He was secretly delighted since Fuinjutsu was a dying art, and rarely found in clans anymore. Usually if a clan needed Fuinjutsu work done they contracted out to businesses that specialized in the art. This however led to the creation of generic wards and barriers that could eventually be bypassed. It was decided Naruto would do light conditioning training in the morning with his sister before she headed off to the academy. Izumi would then drop Naruto off on her way to school, and the boy would do various chakra control exercises and Fuinjutsu practice during his time with Ojo. After the academy, Izumi would pick her brother up and take him home for further conditioning and taijutsu training. The old man had enjoyed the young boy's company over the last few weeks. He was very shy at first, but opened up some after he realized Ojo was a nice man. He was still afraid to ask questions when he didn't know something, probably afraid of getting yelled at, but he was getting better. The old Uchiha had shown him some basic seals and formulas. The elderly man even allowed the boy to run his chakra through a few of them, to get a good feel for their individual abilities. Naruto's chakra's strong response to the seals had been an exceptionally good sign, and the little redhead had gotten a kick out of watching the paint bomb seals exploding. Naruto was switching his scroll over to the other side to continue writing when an urgent knock was heard coming from the front door. The little redhead looked at his sensei to see his eyes glowing red with his fully powered Sharingan. "Who is it?" he called. "Master Ojo, it's me Baisho. I have come for Naruto on an urgent matter," came the reply from the front door. Both teacher and student recognized the voice immediately. Ojo quickly answered the door. Even at his advanced age he got around well. Standing in front of the threshold was Naruto's older brother dressed in his jounin attire. He did not appear to be frantic, but his body language told Ojo he was very uneasy. "What's happened?" the Fuinjutsu user asked. "There was an attempted assassination by an unknown ninja. From apparent evidence we believe the target was a member of the head family, though we aren't sure who. It is possible someone tried to kill Lord Fugaku, but Itachi is also a possibility. An emergency meeting has been called at Naka Shrine." "You said you were here for Naruto, for what reason?" Ojo asked suspiciously. He had an uneasy feeling. Baisho took a moment to answer, which didn't go unnoticed by his elder. "I am taking him to the hospital. Sasuke was used by the enemy in hopes of carrying a fatal poison to the rest of his family. I'm not sure of the specifics, but the Uchiha Med ninjas say Naruto's blood can cure the poison because of special properties." "Special properties? Probably the 9 tails or the fact he is an Uzumaki," Ojo theorized before saying, "Very well, I'll head for the shrine." Baisho picked Naruto up piggyback style and shunshined away. Ojo watched them leave, tracking the elder brother effortlessly with his Sharingan, having an uneasy feeling. He shook it off forcibly, thinking, "He's Naruto's older brother, there's no way he would put him in deliberate danger." He would later come to regret letting Baisho take Naruto away. Uchiha Clan Hospital. Mikoto Uchiha sat by her youngest baby's bedside holding his hand. Every labored breath he took was like a kunai knife straight to the heart. Her own mother was gone, but she couldn't grieve as her son needed her strong. Standing at the foot of the bed was her husband, looking stern and strong, refusing to show emotion. "Lord Fugaku." The Uchiha Kanda, the senior Med ninja, politely inquired, holding the door open. Clearly, he wanted to talk in the hallway as not to disturb the grieving mother. Fugaku gave his wife an unreadable look before following the Med ninja out. After the door closed, the Uchiha clan head demanded, "What is it? Have you found a way to save my son?" Kanda sighed before saying sadly, "We neutralized the poison quickly, sir, but it managed to do a lot of damage before we could. From what we understand about the poison, it reacts faster to those with larger chakra reserves than others. The enemy probably expected Sasuke to infect several people before falling ill himself. What they didn't consider was the amount of chakra your youngest possesses, nor the Sharingan abilities that allowed Lady Mikoto see the poison after it reacted to contact with chakra inside Sasuke and her late mother. Fugaku stared at the closed door of his son's hospital room before looking back at the medic. If the poison is neutralized, then why can't you use medical ninjutsu to repair Sasuke's body? Almost all the damage to Sasuke was in the heart. The heart is heavily integrated into the chakra network. The process in which we would use our medical techniques require us to push a patient's chakra out of the area we are healing, and then use our chakra to rep the damage. That is why medical ninjutsu requires such precise chakra control. If you are not careful, then when you push out the patient's chakra, it can cause more damage. No med ninja here on staff, nor in any medical facility in the Land of Fire, possesses the degree of chakra control to safely heal Sasuke's heart, because of the level of damage done. Maybe Lady Tsunade Senju could, but if any of us try, Sasuke will die almost immediately after our chakra enters his heart. After listening to the doctor's explanation, Fugaku cursed the fates. The one time I actually want a damn Senju around, and you can't find one. Then an idea occurred to the clan head. What about a heart transplant? The doctor had a hesitant look on his face. There are complications with that option, sir. We don't have a heart available that would match well with your son. There is also no way of knowing if any other facility around would have one either unless we inquired and explained why we needed one. Since we need one for Sasuke, we couldn't lie and say it was another Uchiha, because then whatever heart we were given wouldn't match. Fugaku was by no means a stupid man and could understand what the medic was saying. He didn't want to alert the village because of an available option that most wouldn't agree with. There's a heart available here that is still in use. It's a little more complicated than that, sir, the medic said nervously. How could it be more complicated? Fugaku asked. Looking up when he heard the front door to the building open, he saw Uzumaki Naruto and his older brother walk through the door. After seeing the young redhead, it finally dawned on Fugaku exactly what the real complication was. Are you insane? He quietly asked the doctor. We take Uzumaki-san's heart and swap it out with your son's. Sasuke will get a healthy heart, and Uzumaki-san's special chakra will repair the heart we give him, Kanda explained. What is the Jinchuriki's chances of surviving the operation? Fugaku asked, already knowing the answer. Low, sir, very small chance of survival, the Uchiha medic answered honestly. Fugaku stood in silence, contemplating the negative fallout this would cause with the village. They could always say the boy died as a result of a training accident if the worst happened. Looking at the door to his son's room, he made his choice. Get Uzumaki-san prepared for surgery. Do not tell my wife anything. Inform her we have a heart transplant for Sasuke, nothing more. Do you understand me? Kanda nodded and signaled a nurse to prepare Naruto. He then went to explain things to Mikoto exactly as Fugaku said to. After having a meeting with his remaining staff, it was decided that the surgeries would happen simultaneously, as it was the only way this could possibly work. Naruto sat in a large room on a hospital table in nothing but his shorts. His older brother was leaning against the far wall with his eyes closed. A slightly plump nurse had shown them to the room and instructed both to wait for the doctor. Kanda walked in looking at a clipboard. He saw Baisho leaning on the wall. Is everything ready? The white-haired boy nodded his head. Yes, my little brother has volunteered to give blood for Sasuke. The medic looked between both brothers and realized Baisho hadn't told Naruto the truth. Realizing it was for the best, he decided to keep up the lie. Thank you, Naruto, for your help. I'm afraid it's a little more serious than a blood transfusion. Sasuke will require a bone marrow transfusion instead. Naruto was a little confused and asked meekly. What's BB bone marrow? The medic explained. It is the substance inside our bones that make blood. If we give some of yours to Sasuke, it will make him better. However, this is a painful procedure, so we're going to put you to sleep for it. Naruto looked to Baisho for guidance. His brother gave him a reassuring smile and said, Don't worry, Naruto, I'll be here the whole time. Izumi knocked on the door of Ojo's house. She waited a few seconds but received no response, so she knocked again. After a moment she opened the door and walked in, calling for Naruto. She found a note on a small table, just inside the door, addressed to her. Picking it up she read, Izumi, there was an assassination attempt today and Sasuke Uchiha was injured. Both your brothers have gone to the Uchiha clan hospital as Naruto's blood could prove useful in saving Sasuke. I was called to an emergency meeting at Naka Shrine. After reading the quickly written note, Izumi tore off towards the Uchiha hospital. It made sense in a way to use Naruto's blood. His Jinchuriki healing abilities combined with his Uzumaki healing abilities could be passed, temporarily, by blood transfer, or so she heard. Still, Izumi had an uneasy feeling in her gut. Bursting into the Uchiha hospital, the first person she saw was her older brother. How are Naruto and Sasuke? Did the blood transfusion help? Baisho looked at his baby sister and said, Naruto and Sasuke-sama are both in recovery. Sasuke is in room 1 and Naruto is in room 2. Without waiting for any further explanation, Izumi quickly made her way to room 2, wondering why Naruto needed a bed. Upon entering, she saw her baby brother's chest wrapped in bandages. He looked extremely pale and weak. She was shocked to see Naruto in such a state. Turning to look at Baisho, who followed her in, Izumi asked, What's going on? I was informed that this was a blood transfusion. Baisho's face was a mask of hard chiseled stone as he explained. Sasuke-sama's heart was heavily damaged by an enemy poison. To save him, we exchanged Naruto's heart for his. Sasuke-sama is doing very well and should recover quickly, and as suspected, Naruto's abilities are repairing the heart he now has. It took a moment of stunned disbelief for Izumi to process everything her beloved older brother had just told her. Looking back down at the very pale and shaking child, she asked, Did Naruto agree to do this? Did he fully understand everything that was going on? Without remorse, the older boy told the truth. No, he thought it was going to be a bone marrow transplant. You bastard! The shocked girl screamed. Baisho gave his sister a stern look. You need to understand something, Izumi. Naruto is not an Uchiha, and if his death means Sasuke-sama lives, then so be it. The only true accomplishment he will ever truly have is saving Sasuke-san, and you know I'm right, you're just too stubborn to admit it. Right now, there are those jealous of the Uchiha's power and control of the village, and they do everything in their power to subjugate us. They are trying to choke us out with unfair prejudice and lies. The truth is, everyone fears this village because we call it home. Our strength is greater than every other clan's combined. If they fall in battle so we can continue on, then the village is stronger for it. Izumi couldn't believe the words she was hearing. She couldn't believe her kind older brother really thought this way. Where is the doctor? Someone should be here with Naruto. Baisho shrugged his shoulders. Most were too exhausted after the dual surgeries and needed rest. The ones still standing are tending to Sasuke-sama. Though Baisho didn't say anything, the truth was still in his manner of uncaring. No one believed Naruto would survive and had placed him off to the side to die quietly. If he died, then they would make it look like an accident. I need air, Izumi said, running out of the room. Upon exiting the hospital, the young Uchiha vomited all over the grass. She stood, hyperventilating, and came to a decision. Izumi ran as fast as she could for Hokage's tower. Izumi's house. Izumi poured her cold tea down the sink. Frustrated tears fell down her cheeks as she remembered her older brother's words. If he truly placed the Uchiha on such a high pedestal, then what did that mean regarding their father's victims? Did he believe their father should have been pardoned because he was an Uchiha, or that Kurina Yuhi should have just accepted what happened and moved on? The truth was, she no longer knew what her brother was thinking anymore. Izumi threw her glass against the wall, shattering it with a yell of frustration. She then collapsed back in her chair and laid her head on the table, sobbing. She heard the front door open and close with a loud slam. Looking up, the 9-year-old girl watched her brother storm in. Gone was the shinobi emotionless mask, and instead was a face full of rage. Do you know what you did? The Uchiha clan is being audited. We also can't take part in any missions, except for the running of the police force, until after an official investigation. That doesn't matter for me though, because my shinobi license has been permanently suspended. Izumi glared at Baisho definitely. After what you did to our brother, they should have killed you. Baisho was taken back by the venom in his sister's voice. She had never once spoke to him with such hate. He made a move as if to slap her, when he heard another cold voice speak. That would be a bad idea. Both Uchiha turned to look at the wall with the family photos to see an Anbu shinobi leaning against it. Baisho tensed as he hadn't felt the man's presence at all, but there was no mistaking who he was. Hatake Kakashi. The spiky-haired ninja pulled off his dog-themed mask to reveal not much more of his face. The only area you could see was around his right eye, since his ninja headband covered his left eye, and a half mask covered his nose and mouth. His hair was as white as Baisho's. Lord Hokage sent me to inform both of you that Naruto is no longer in danger of dying. His body repaired the heart well enough for the medical staff to take over. He is still in a coma but should wake in a few days. Izumi may visit him whenever she likes, but no one else will be allowed in his room. Both Uchiha's reactions were different at hearing the news. Baisho couldn't care less, and Izumi started crying again with a smile on her face. What about the Uchiha clan's audit? Baisho asked quickly. Kakashi's one visible eye narrowed as a powerful pressure was felt in the air. Lord Hokage will send Marino Ibiki tomorrow to begin. As Kakashi began to walk towards the front door, he paused and addressed the siblings in a lazy manner, staring over his right shoulder. One more thing, killing you by show might upset Naruto. After surviving such an ordeal as he did, telling him you were executed might accidentally unleash the Kyuubi. Kakashi stood there for a few more seconds, letting his words sink in. Seeing the eyes of the older Uchiha narrow, the Anbu knew he got the message. The older ninja left, and Baisho turned to address his sister, only to find she was gone too. Izumi was already fast on her way to visit Naruto, screw visiting hours. Naruto awoke in an area he had never been before. The sky was full of golden clouds that appeared to have twinkling stars set inside them, and the floor was clear, clean water that reflected the sky perfectly. The shy boy had never seen anything so beautiful before. Looking back down at his feet, he finally realized he was standing on the water's surface. He had seen his sister do something similar, and wondered if he somehow learned the technique. "No, you are not standing on water. The water is holding you up," came a reply from behind the boy. Naruto quickly turned around to see a man sitting cross-legged in midair, or at least the little Uzumaki thought he was a man. He had a long thin white beard and spiky white hair. There appeared to be 2 horns on his forehead. The old man was dressed in an all-white robe with 6 red tomo along the front of the collar. It was when the man opened his eyes and looked at him that Naruto received a shock. The old man's eyes were purple, and appeared to have a ripple pattern that started at the center and disappeared at the edges. "Who are you?" Naruto stuttered in a scared voice. The man gave him a kind smile and said, "I am Otsutsuki Hagoromo, though you may have heard of me by my title, the Sage of Six Paths." Naruto tapped his fingers in front of himself shyly. The name didn't ring a bell, and he didn't want to insult the grown-up. Usually when grown-ups got mad, they would hit him. Naruto noticed the old sage frown. "I will not hurt or yell at you, Uzumaki Naruto. You are only 4, so it is no wonder you never heard of me before. Most people think me to be only a myth anyways." "CC, can why you read my mind?" Naruto asked in wonder. Hagoromo laughed. "No, reading your body language, as well what I already know about you from observations, I can make an educated guess." Naruto wasn't really sure what the old man meant, but he was smiling, so that was a good sign. Naruto didn't know why, but he was becoming less nervous and somehow knew this was a good man. Then something the sage said clicked in the boy's head. "Your observations? You've been watching me?" The sage noticed the stutter this time was more from angry than nervousness. "You and others. I died over 1,000 years ago, and from time to time will look in on my descendants." Naruto calmed down hearing they were family. He became nervous once again though and asked scared, If why you're dead, then am I dead?" "No." Hagoromo was quick to reassure the small child. "You came close to dying, but you will live." Naruto was confused. "How did I almost die? Did they take too much blood?" A look of anger crossed the face of Hagoromo, but was gone before Naruto could truly register it. "They didn't take your blood. They exchanged your heart with Sasuke's. Your natural healing abilities fixed the damaged heart, but you should never have been placed in such jeopardy just to save another boy. It wasn't your responsibility, and they didn't even have the courtesy to ask for permission." Baisho probably didn't know what was really happening, Naruto said, looking down at his chest. He pulled his shirt out a little to see if there was a scar. "There are no signs of injury, as you have fully recovered," the sage said, seeing Naruto curiously check himself. "As for your loving older brother, he knew exactly what was going to happen when he came and collected you from Uchiha Ojo." Naruto looked up shocked. How could Baisho do that to him? He began to shake as tears gathered in his eyes. The old man quickly gathered him up in his arms and sat Naruto down in his lap. The redhead broke down and cried into the sage's robes, wondering why his older brother would betray him. Hagoromo didn't mind the wet tears though, he just patted Naruto's back to comfort him. Finally, the child stopped crying and just sat sniffling in the sage's lap. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but there is something you needed to know, and our time to talk is limited. One day soon you will have to make a difficult choice, and you need to be prepared," Hagoromo said, staring out into the golden horizon. "What do you mean, sir?" Naruto sniffed, wiping his nose on his sleeve since he didn't have a tissue. The otherworldly being seemed to conjure one from thin air and hand it to the child. "The Uchiha are in danger of being completely destroyed. They feel unfairly treated by the village, and they're not entirely wrong in some ways. These ill feelings are causing some to think of possible treason against Konoha. The Hokage is aware of their actions, and is trying to prevent fighting from breaking out, but there are those in power that have found ways to undermine Hiruzen Sarutobi's efforts. The sage explained sadly. I don't understand, the Uchiha are the police. That's an important role in the village, Naruto said quietly. The Hokage himself explained that to him. Hagoromo took a deep breath and began. The problem goes back a ways, Naruto. Before the ninja villages, there were only ninja clans. After a period of almost endless war, the Senju and Uchiha formed an alliance to create the first ninja village Konoha. Soon other clans joined the village and the Land of Fire prospered. However, when the time came to select the first Hokage, the Uchiha wanted their leader Madara selected, as that was one thing promised to them for helping create the village. However, the other clans wanted the Senju leader Hashirama chosen. Fearing the village would break apart, both the Uchiha and Senju agreed to Hashirama becoming the first Hokage. However, Madara was not in agreement with this choice and soon left the village. The powerful Madara managed to use Genjutsu to take control of the nine-tailed fox and return to Konoha to forcibly take the Hokage seat. After an unimaginable battle between Madara and Hashirama, the first Hokage was victorious and the Kyuubi was sealed into his wife Uzumaki Mido. Seeing Naruto was about to interrupt him, the sage said, Yes, Naruto, she was a member of your clan. After the battle, the other clans became weary of the Uchiha. There was still bad blood between some of the clans because of the warring clans period, and the Uchiha had been most vicious in their victories. Though Hashirama tried to help, he was also trying to make peace with the other ninja villages that had sprung up in answer to Konoha. Hashirama died from illness and his brother, Tobirama, became the second Hokage. It was he who made the Uchiha police force. Tobirama didn't trust the Uchiha and lacked his brother's heart. He wanted the Uchiha sequestered and out of the way of village politics. By making them the police, he accomplished this while making it seem he was giving them a true purpose. Over the years, the Leaf Village Council would downplay the Uchiha's accomplishments. They didn't want them gaining popularity with the civilians. The Uchiha were also accused of involvement in the second Kyuubi attack 4 years ago. The last thing anyone, even your current kind-hearted Hokage, wants is for an Uchiha to become the village leader. Though it pains me to admit this, the village council is not wrong in their thinking, just their actions. The Uchiha are too stubborn and proud. They believe the village exists to serve their ambitions. If they were to be given leadership over village, then they would try and take all the power for themselves. Under their rule, the people would ultimately suffer while the Uchiha thrived. Even if a kind-hearted Uchiha took the seat, the clan would still be in his or her ear telling them what to do. With the Uchiha's current attitude, there is no possible way for an Uchiha Hokage at this time. Naruto sat quietly thinking about what Hagoromo told him. He didn't fully understand everything, but he got the basics. The Uchiha wanted to take Old Man Hokage's place, and they were willing to hurt people to get it. What can I do to stop this? I don't want to see anyone get hurt. The sage smiled sadly down at his descendant. No matter how strong the words of the heart are, one must be willing to listen for them to have an effect. You, Naruto, have a powerful gift to reach the hearts of those around you and change them for the better. Unfortunately, there are those within the Uchiha clan that will never hear your words. If forced into a corner, the Hokage will choose the village over one clan. If that happens, it could mean the deaths of all Uchiha. Naruto's new heart stopped for a second. What the old man was really telling him was his siblings were in danger of being executed by the Hokage himself. I'll go back, and make those who will listen understand that treason is bad. The sage just smiled down sadly at the little boy. What will you do about the ones that won't listen? What will you do when they talk to the ones that will listen, and change their minds back to treason? What do you do then, Naruto? Naruto's eyes began to tear up again as he thought about how hopeless it seemed. I just found my brother and sister, the Hokage wouldn't take them away. Would he? It wasn't fair. Anyone who knew Izumi knows she would never betray the village, and by show he would never do anything to jeopardize Izumi. Would he? How can I save them? Naruto sniffled. I'm only me. I'm not talented or strong like my brother and sister. Sniff. Hagoromo laughed lightly at the little boy's question and hugged him tightly. You are far stronger than you think, Naruto. I had 2 sons in my life, and because of events that took place that I won't get into right now, they both chose to reincarnate down their respective bloodlines after dying. Indra was my oldest and Ashura was my youngest. You, my boy, are of Ashura's line, and the incarnate of my youngest for your generation. Naruto was so shocked he stopped crying. What does that mean? As a result of what has recently happened, you will receive my very own chakra. This will give you the ability to use the yin-yang release. What that means is for you to find out. The first Hokage was the incarnate of Ashura before you, and he had such a close resemblance of my chakra. He gained the strongest wood release ever seen. The little Uzumaki sat in the sage's lap processing this new information. The fact he could have the same power as the first was incredible. He had heard stories about the man that built the village from Ojojiji, since he had been alive to meet him. Then something began to bother him. If I'm the incarnate of Ashura, then who is the incarnate of Indra? Hagoromo rubbed Naruto's red hair. That I won't tell you, but I'll tell you who the last one was. Uchiha Madara, the man who fought Hashirama for the Hokage hat. The sage watched proudly as the quiet redhead figured out the hidden clue. If Madara was the incarnate, then it stands to reason the Uchiha were the descendants of Indra. That means his new incarnate was also an Uchiha. Will I gain the wood release, Mr. Sage? Naruto asked curiously. It was too hard for the 4-year-old to pronounce Otsutsuki. Ignoring the way Naruto addressed him, Hagoromo explained. You, Naruto, are the first ever incarnate from the Uzumaki clan. The wood release is an exceedingly rare Kekkai Genkai of the Senju clan that only a few receive. Hashirama was by far the most powerful user since Ashura himself, though every Senju incarnate gained the Kekkai Genkai. You, Naruto, have little Senju in your pedigree. Most of your blood is Uchiha, with Uzumaki coming in at a close second and Senju at the bottom. Something the sage said didn't really make sense to Naruto. Izumi told me the Uzumaki are cousins of the Senju, and that the Hyuga are cousins of the Uchiha. She also said that it is believed by the Uchiha that the Byakugan is an offshoot of the Sharingan. She also told me the Uzumaki have such powerful chakra because of the Senju clan. If that's true, then why does my small amount of Senju blood mean anything? Shouldn't the Uzumaki and Senju blood be the same? The old sage scoffed at Naruto's question. Sorry, Naruto, but that is completely wrong. My brother Hamura Otsutsuki is the father of the Hyuga clan, as well a few other like the Kagaya. My sons only fathered the Uchiha and Senju. One of Ashura's granddaughters married a man that had unusual properties associated with his life force. When combined with Ashura's line, this created a special chakra that granted increased healing abilities and excessive longevity. This was the birth of the Uzumaki clan. Hagoromo let the information sink in a little before continuing. There is one more thing we must discuss, Naruto, the reason why you are hated? Naruto gave the sage all his attention. This was the question he had asked the old Hokage many times but received no answer for. As I mentioned earlier, Mito Uzumaki had sealed the Kyuubi inside herself to stop it attacking alongside Madara. Towards the end of her life, she realized she had to seal the fox into a new host. Your mother Kushina was chosen for this burden because, even amongst the Uzumaki clan, her chakra was special. The day you were born, someone, possibly an Uchiha, freed Kyuubi from your mother in her weakened state, and used him to attack the village. The 4th Hokage needed another Uzumaki to seal the fox inside and chose you, since there were no other available candidates. Naruto looked down at his stomach, shocked. The 9-tailed fox was said to be bigger than any building in Konoha. How does something so big fit in my tummy? The sage let out a deep bellowing laugh. Simple, the 4th Hokage sealed him inside you using Fuinjutsu. After calming down, Hagoromo gave Naruto a sad look. You need to know something else, Naruto. I battled a beast known as the 10 Tails. I stopped it by sealing it inside myself, becoming the first Jinchuriki, the name for people like you with Biju sealed inside themselves. At the end of my life, I used my abilities to separate the monster into the 9-tailed beasts of today. The fox inside you is my son Kurama, and at one time was a guardian of man. Over the years, people would persecute the Biju unfairly, causing them to become hateful of humanity. Their treatment in the past is similar to the way your village treats you. So, when you first met him, keep that in mind. Sensing his time with his ancestor was coming to an end, Naruto held his robes tighter. Please, sir, tell me how to save my brother and sister. I can't, Naruto, the sage said sadly. This is something you must discover for yourself. It is unfortunate, but remember this, no matter how powerful you become, no matter how great a hero you are, you can't save everyone. Naruto was about to try pleading again but found himself looking up at a white ceiling he didn't recognize. Looking around the room from his bed, he saw various machines and a window that showed the night sky. Looking down at himself, he saw he was only wearing his shorts. A large paper sheet was attached to his chest and paper bandages were wrapped around both his arms. He saw various seals drawn on the paper sheet and wraps, but he didn't know what they meant. Suddenly, something happened that Naruto couldn't explain. He could feel his chakra flowing through the seals. He had felt his chakra before when Ojo showed him seals at his house, but not like this. As the energy flowed from the seals and back into his body, his mind began to flood with information. It was like his chakra was literally teaching him everything about the Fuinjutsu currently on his body. Then he felt something that scared him. His stomach began to feel warm as his chakra began analyzing the formula on his abdomen. The one he now knew held the fox prisoner. If this accidentally broke the seal, then the beast would get out. He tried to control his power and make it stop, but it wouldn't respond. His mind began to gain even more information as his chakra finally stopped. Now knew there were two seal formulas at work, and a master tag embedded in both. Naruto suddenly went back to the day he first learned about master tags. It was the third day he had worked with Ojo-sensei. It was like he was there reliving the moment. It was perfect memory recall in high definition. Now Naruto, I want you to have a look at this and tell me what it is. Ojo had asked the young boy, handing him a large sheet of paper with a formula drawn on it. Naruto had examined the paper excitedly since he loved learning about seals. It was the jutsu of the Uzumaki clan and Naruto wanted to be the best Uzumaki seal master ever. The drawing looked like a throwing star outline full of various kanji and squiggly marks. Naruto gave Ojo a confused look. It looks like a sh shuriken. Ojo rubbed Naruto's head affectionately and explained. That is the formula that represents my chakra. It is called a master tag, and it is needed to use some of the most powerful Fuinjutsu techniques known throughout the world. Learn this, and the only thing that will limit your Fuinjutsu will be lack of knowledge and imagination. Increase your knowledge and better your mind and imagination, then there is theoretically nothing you can't do. The old Uchiha then reached into the pocket of his robes and pulled out a triple-bladed kunai. He handed it handle first to Naruto and said, "What you hold there is one of the kunai that the fourth Hokage used to end the third great ninja war. His teleportation jutsu, the Flying Thunder God, requires a master's tag to connect with the user and allow instantaneous travel." Naruto studied the kanji on the handle intently. He looked up excitedly at his sensei and asked, "CC, can you use FFF?" "No, Naruto, I can't." Ojo interrupted the boy. Naruto gave the old man a disappointed look. "The technique requires more knowledge than I possess to perform. I only know the basics of it. I'm just using it as an example. Unfortunately, you are years away from possible discovering your master tag, as each one is different from each individual to the next." Naruto snapped back to the present with his mind buzzing. All the information he had gathered today, combined with whatever his chakra was doing, had revealed to him his master tag. He also knew the fourth master tag was a 5-point shuriken, as that was in both of the two formulas on his abdomen. He was in such an excited state of mind about knowing how to perform the Flying Thunder God jutsu, he never felt his chakra once again mold with the prison on his stomach, changing it for the better. It was as Naruto examined the formulas for the fourth's legendary jutsu in his head, he realized that it would be impossible for him to use. He wanted to cry out in frustration at the revelation. No matter how hard he tried, his chakra could never be controlled enough for the pinpoint precision required to teleport with the jutsu. Even with this new power of living chakra he seemed to have gained, he just knew Flying Thunder God was out of his reach. He couldn't really explain how he knew this, it was just some kind of instinct, a knowing. This power, knowing, seemed to guide him to another thought. Could I use the information I now have on space/time techniques to make my own? Maybe one that requires more power to use so chakra control isn't an issue so much. This thought kept Naruto awake the rest of the night. He was still staring at the ceiling as the sun began to shine through his room's window. Naruto sat bored in his hospital room 4 days later after waking up. According to his sister, he had been asleep for 3 days. Ever since he had woken up, all the Uzumaki wanted to do was go home and practice Fuinjutsu. The Hokage, however, wanted him to stay in the hospital until an expert could examine him. The small child had already finished his breakfast of bacon and toast, and now sat arms crossed and pouting with nothing to entertain himself with. Luckily, he knew the expert would be arriving today. At least they had removed the bandages and given him a shirt. A knock came from his door as Izumi walked in carrying several takeout containers full of Ichiraku ramen. Naruto was happy to see his sister and was even happier to see the ramen, not that he loved ramen more than Izumi, but he was hungry. Naruto was a little disappointed though when she closed the door behind herself, meaning she was once again alone. According to the brown-haired Uchiha, Baisho had retired from active shinobi duty and had taken up a position in the Uchiha police force. Apparently, their older brother wanted to be home more with the two of them. He was too busy right now to come and see the little Uzumaki, since he was still getting familiar with the ins and outs of police work. Naruto had also asked about Ojo-sensei, but Izumi just said he was too old to make the trip. Naruto wasn't sure how he should act towards his big brother. No one knew the redhead was aware of the fact his and Sasuke's hearts had been swapped. The story they gave him was he had reacted wrong to the anesthesia. The young Jinchuriki had tried to reason with himself, figuring his big brother knew he wouldn't really be in any danger, but even Naruto wasn't that gullible. The fact was Baisho had valued another Uchiha's life over his own little brother's and it made Naruto angry. He would really like to see his sensei though. Izumi noticed Naruto looking at the door but said nothing about it. The truth was no other Uchiha besides her was allowed anywhere near Naruto. The Hokage had given ANBU standing orders to execute Baisho on sight if he left the Uchiha compound, since they placed him under house arrest. What Izumi told Naruto about their older brother joining the police was true though. Despite the Hokage revoking Baisho's shinobi license, The Uchiha police force was considered a civilian institution, so it could hire civilians as police officers. Since civilians weren't shinobi, they couldn't advance up the ranks though. It was a political ruling that gave the Hokage some control over the Uchiha police force without taking full control away from the clan. Just another example of the biased treatment of the Shinobi Council. Izumi had been accosted by an old man on the second day of Naruto's hospital stay, right after leaving the building. The man used a cane, held in his left hand while his right arm was stuck in a sling, and the right side of his face and top of his head were covered in bandages. Despite looking to be as old as Lord Third, the man's hair was a dark gray instead of white. Izumi had become instantly on guard as she knew the man to be Shimura Danzo, the head of Root, an elite unit of shinobi like A and B that weren't directly controlled by the Hokage. Danzo would have no issue murdering an innocent person if it meant his vision of the Leaf Village was secure. He was not a man to cross. Uchiha Izumi, perhaps one of the most worrisome issues we have regarding our Jinchuriki. Danzo had begun, talking in a casual voice that still held a cold threat somehow. Izumi remembered thinking to herself that the voice itself must have taken considerably practice. "Can I help you, Lord Danzo?" the Uchiha said kindly, placing a fake disarming smile on her face. Danzo's hand tightened around his cane briefly, before asking, "I'm curious, girl, if you can answer a question for me. What is most important to you, your little brother, your family, or your village?" Izumi kept smiling even as her blood ran cold. She decided to give an honest answer and let the old warmonger draw his own conclusions. "I believe protecting Naruto-kun protects the village. Therefore he will always be my top priority for as long as he needs me to protect him, since that keeps the village safe." Izumi had walked off quickly after speaking, as to not give Danzo a chance to talk again. She didn't show it, but Izumi had been terrified the entire walk back to the Uchiha compound, and only truly relaxed the moment she crossed the gate. The young academy student had gone to bed early that night wondering if Baisho wasn't the only one being kept alive for Naruto's sake. The sweet girl placed the takeout on the end table in Naruto's hospital room, then leaned over and kissed the top of his head. The little boy blushed as red as his Uzumaki hair since he still wasn't used to such affection. Izumi then placed his food tray table in front of him with the ramen on top. She handed him the chopsticks and sat down while her little brother ate. As Naruto polished off his 10th bowl, there came another knock on the door. The Hokage entered, followed by a big man that Naruto didn't recognize. The new guy had long white hair tied back with bangs covering the side of his face. A headband with the kanji for oil covered his forehead, and his outfit was mostly a light gray. He wore red Geta sandals, a red coat, and forearm guards. Izumi sprung to her feet quickly and bowed nervously. "Lord Hokage, Master Jiraiya, it's an honor, sir. What brings you to see my brother today?" Jiraiya gave his award-winning smile. "Ah, you must be the lovely Izumi, Naruto's big sister that the Hokage mentioned. Sarutobi wants me to examine our little patient to ensure everything is going okay with his chakra." Izumi gave the Sannin a questioning look before it dawned on her what he was really going to look at. If it was really a medical issue, then Lady Tsunade would have been called in. This was to do with the Kyuubi's prison, but they didn't want Naruto to know. "Good morning, Naruto," the Hokage said. "This man next to me is one of the legendary Sannin, Master Jiraiya. I asked him to check your chakra network to make sure everything was functioning correctly." As the Fuinjutsu master made his way to Naruto's bedside, Sarutobi was giving Izumi a searching look. The girl obviously knew who Jiraiya was but didn't ask any question about why he was checking her little brother's chakra network. He had already planned an explanation for the girl and why his student was performing a task that any medical ninja could perform, but apparently it wasn't needed. The only plausible explanation for why though troubled him because it meant someone already told her about Kyuubi. Someone had violated his law and spoke of Naruto's Jinchuriki status to someone that didn't know. Jiraiya stood up and gave his sensei a troubled look. "Hiruzen, can I speak to you in the hallway?" Hiruzen nodded and said, "Izumi, please join us." Uncertain, the young girl stepped out into the hallway. Naruto didn't like the fact they were leaving him alone, and just wanted to get out of there already. In the hallway, Jiraiya turned to his former sensei. "What we need to discuss is of a sensitive nature." "She knows." Hiruzen interrupted the Sannin. He fixed a strong glare on Izumi, making the girl shake a little in fear. "Who told you?" Jiraiya felt a little sorry for the girl and intervened. "That's not important at the moment. Minato's master tag has somehow been replaced with some else's that I can't identify. Someone else has control of the prison. The key Minato gave me won't work anymore." "What? Is there any danger of the seal breaking?" Sarutobi asked, shocked. All angry and concerned about his law being violated gone. "Is my little brother okay?" Izumi asked as her eyes began to tear up. Everything is fine at the moment. The Toad Sage quickly reassured them. Izumi, run home and get Master Ojo. Tell him to report directly to the Hokage. The Uchiha quickly took off to accomplish her task. Sarutobi turned to Jiraiya with a questioning look. Do you think it was Ojo that stole control? The Sannin stood quietly for a second thinking. No. Ojo's a good man. He loves children and would gladly lay down his life for the village. Even if the Uchiha clan ordered him to do this, he wouldn't have. The problem is not many Fuinjutsu users ever discover their master tag, but I'm sure Ojo has. If it wasn't him, then I don't have a clue who else it could be. No one here at the hospital could have accomplished this, Hiruzen said to himself while looking around. He turned to Jiraiya and said, Let's head back to my office to wait for Ojo. Both men used Shunshin, leaving quickly. Across town in the Uchiha compound, Izumi was running as fast as she could to Master Ojo's house. Several clan members waved to her, but she didn't bother waving back. She finally made it Ojo's small house and pounded on the front door. Just a second, damn it. I'm coming, just hold on. I don't move as fast as I used to. Izumi heard the old man holler from inside. He finally wrenched the door open angrily. Yes, what is it? Oh, Izumi. He finished smiling. You need to report to Lord Hokage right away. There is some kind of problem with Kyuubi's prison on Naruto. Lord Third and Master Jiraiya are waiting for you. Izumi explained breathlessly. Ojo quickly closed his front door as he walked outside. The moment the door closed without Ojo inside the house, a seal appeared on the doorknob with the kanji 4 lock drawn in the middle. As they were leaving the gates, Izumi tried to explain what the problem was, only for Ojo to stop her. We don't want to cause a panic if we don't need to, dear. These are things we don't discuss where everyone can hear. It took them some time to make it to the Hokage manor. The whole way Ojo was complaining about his back, his hips, and the distance from the compound to the manor. Finally, they came upon the front entrance where the Chunin were standing guard. Izumi recognized the blonde Hyuga on guard duty from the day they adopted Naruto. He stepped aside as the two Uchiha approached, since he had already received orders. Hurrying past the secretary without so much as a hello, both Uchiha walked straight into the Hokage's office. Ojo stood in front of Hiruzen's desk taking deep breaths. After his heart finally calmed down a little, he said, What's the emergency? Izumi was staring at the stone-cold face of the village leader. On his right stood an equally cold Jiraiya. The Toad Hermit pulled a scroll from inside his pocket and laid it flat on the desk while studying Ojo's reaction to the drawing. On the paper was a 5-pointed shuriken outlined with various kanji and formulas that Izumi didn't recognize. Master Ojo gave Jiraiya a pointed look and asked, Is this the emergency? You found a seal formula with an unknown master tag? Izumi told me something was wrong with Naruto-kun's seal. Jiraiya relaxed a little at the fact the old Uchiha didn't recognize the fourth master tag. He wasn't quite finished though. The hermit pulled out another scroll and opened it on the Hokage's desk. On this paper was another outline with various kanji and formulas as well. This one looked like a cat's paw. Sarutobi watched Ojo's reaction, along with Jiraiya, and could clearly see the older man becoming frustrated. Well, someone please tell me what is going on, and why you keep showing me master tags. Master Ojo, can you show us your master tag? The Hokage demanded, presenting a blank scroll. Despite the way he phrased his words, it wasn't a request. The elder Uchiha took the offered scroll and began running through hand signs. He placed his hand in the center of the open paper. Ink like spiderwebbing began to cover the surface until the drawing of the shuriken image, complete with kanji that represented Ojo's chakra formula, appeared. Both Hokage and Jiraiya relaxed a little bit more. This confirmed in their minds that Ojo had nothing to do with the tampering of Naruto's seal. It did bring up a more troubling question though. Who tampered with the seal and for what purpose? Jiraiya shared a look with the Hokage before addressing Ojo. What I'm about to tell you is top secret. The only people that shall know what was discussed will be the four of you. Unless a life or death event occurs, you can tell no one. Not your clan, not Baisho, no one. Ojo simply nodded his head at the instructions. It wasn't the first time too secret information was shared with him. At the elder man's nod, Jiraiya continued explaining. I examined the fourth seal today. Lord Hokage wanted to make sure there was no damage due to the heart swap that almost killed Naruto. Upon examination, I realized that the fourth master tag was replaced by a new tag. The cat paw on the desk is now the controller of the seal. All the force preparations made, in the advent of an emergency in containing the fox, are as of right now completely ineffective. The only measure now is the seal and Naruto himself. The elder Uchiha gave no visible reaction to the news, but on the inside, he was fuming. If they were dealing with an enemy, then Naruto-kun was essentially their living bomb within the village. They could simply destroy the seal at any time from wherever they were, and the village could do nothing to stop it. What about placing a second seal over the first? An odd number seal to offset the even number seal, perhaps? The Hokage lit his pipe and said, "That won't work. At best it would slow down the fox's release, but not stop it. Also, an odd number seal would completely destroy Naruto's ability to mold chakra." Izumi nervously spoke up, looking to Jiraiya. "I have a question, sir. How difficult would it be to replace the master tag in Naruto's seal?" Jiraiya thought it over a little before saying, "Extremely difficult. You would have to open the formula, apply a release delay of adequate size, remove Minato's tag and place your own, remove the release delay without breaking the seal outright, extremely difficult, then close the formula as it was intended to fold." "Fold, sir?" Izumi inquired further. "Yes, seal formulas are usually drawn large, then folded smaller. When you create an explosive tag, you use an intertabletop to draw the formula. Then you place the paper tag in the middle. When you fold the formula, you place it on the tag, creating the finished product. A master can draw folded formula seals with chakra alone. Master Ojo demonstrated this when he drew his master tag." Jiraiya finished. "Then, from what you're saying, the only person that could have done this was someone who knew the workings of Naruto's seal inside and out," Izumi stated, shocked. "Was there really someone out there as good as the fourth in terms of Fuinjutsu? Did the fourth invent the seal used on Naruto?" "No," Ojo stated. "It is in fact an old jutsu used by the Uzumaki clan. I believe Namikaze Minato was trained in their arts at Kushina's request?" "You're correct, Ojo," Hiruzen said, deep in thought. "I don't see how we'll figure out." "Lord Hokage," the secretary interrupted over the intercom. "What is it?" "I said no distractions until after this meeting," the Hokage said, pressing a button on his desk. "I know, sir, and I'm sorry, but a doctor and nurse are here to see you regarding Uzumaki Naruto. They say it is important they speak with you, sir." "Send them in," the Hokage ordered. The group of four watched the door open and two people walk in. The nurse had long purple hair and a standard nurse uniform she filled out well. If the situation wasn't so serious, Jiraiya would be all over her. The doctor was an elderly man, perhaps Jiraiya's age, wearing the standard all-white bodysuit and coat that only showed his face. The doctor walked forward and handed several pieces of paper to the Hokage. "Sir, Nurse Amachi brought these to my attention earlier today." The Hokage began to look through the stack of papers, which he saw were drawings done by a small child. "No, not drawings. These are designs for seals." He passed half the sheets to Jiraiya and the other half to Ojo. "Nurse, where did you get these?" "Lord Hokage, I found them in the den boy's room. They were on a night table. He's been drawing them ever since he woke up," the horrible woman said. Jiraiya lost any interest he had in the woman. Giving her a hard look, he asked, "Have you shown these to anyone else?" The purple-haired woman palled at the hard glare. No, sir. I kept them to myself and only showed Dr. Seki this morning. I had a family emergency that kept me busy for the last few days. The nurses were understanding orders that if anything unusual happened, they keep it to themselves and tell me about it first, unless there was immediate danger," the doctor explained. Ojo was studying one of the seal designs for a good minute before looking up quickly, Sharingan active. Both doctor and nurse looked his way and got a glassy-eyed look. "Are you both sure no one else has seen these?" Both answered in a monotone manner. "Yes, we are sure." "Forget you saw these drawings. You came here only to discuss a discrepancy in the medication Naruto has been receiving, nothing more. You talked it over with the Hokage and realized there was no issue. Leave." At the old Uchiha's words, both nurse and doctor left without another word. The Hokage gave Ojo a hard look before saying, "You better have a good reason for placing 2 Konoha civilians under a genjutsu." Ojo stumbled to a chair to sit down. Izumi hurried to help him, but the proud old man waved her off. "I'm sorry for reacting so hastily, Lord Hokage, but I felt it was necessary under the circumstances." Ojo then passed the sheet of paper he had been studying to Hiruzen. "I have no idea what Naruto-kun is trying to accomplish with this formula, but I do recognize one aspect of it." Jiraiya moved to look over the kanji and formulas. He was completely shocked to see a crude design for a space/time jutsu. He recognized some of the force work in the design. It was the perfect master tag in the middle of the paper that truly shocked him. "Holy shit, that's Naruto's master tag." The Hokage didn't even bother reprimanding the Sannin for swearing in front of a child. He completely agreed with Jiraiya. Drawn on the paper, with perfect clarity, was the master tag they had discovered in the fourth seal. Uzumaki Naruto had taken control of Kyuubi's prison door. Izumi moved to look over the Hokage's shoulder as well and saw what had startled the grown-ups. What does it mean? Izumi gulped, thinking back to the night Kyuubi attacked the village. How could any person control that much power? Naruto stood in his hospital room staring down at his new clothes. Izumi had returned with a bag from a local store, smiling happily. His sister explained he was all healed, and that she bought him a new outfit to celebrate his release. The redhead was wearing black shinobi-style sandals with ankle-white wraps, black pants that went just past his knees, a sleeveless dark brown shirt, and dark brown wrist wraps. He looked at his sister's outfit and noticed that aside from her purple shirt, which also had a V-cut in the middle of the front and back that reached her knees, their outfits were practically the same. Izumi had dressed him up to be a clone of her, and Naruto was too nice to tell his smiling sister he didn't like it. The giddy girl glomp hugged the little redhead and squealed. "Oh Naruto-kun, you're so cute!" Naruto was blushing bright red as his big sister finally set him back down. She grabbed his hand and said, "Come on. We'll go get lunch and then head to the park." As Izumi led Naruto to the reception desk to check out, she thought back on the conversation she just had with the Hokage, Jiraiya, and Ojo. After Ojo had explained the dangers of her little brother being in control of the cage door, Izumi had asked Jiraiya if he could change the master tag to his. The old hermit had laughed at her question. When he saw Izumi begin to lose her temper, he asked, "You don't use your head very often, do you, girl?" "Think for a second, Izumi," Ojo exclaimed. "Naruto has been studying Fuinjutsu for 1 month. Do you really think, in that small amount of time, he figured out his master tag, discovered his status as a Jinchuriki, figured out the 4th Hokage's sealing technique, and how to safely remove one tag to place another without freeing the demon inside himself? There is more going on here than what we are seeing." Hiruzen spoke next. Some ability your brother possesses, allowed this to happen. If Jiraiya were to place his tag inside the seal, then this unknown ability could just change the tag back to Naruto. Without more information we can't act. Going in blind could prove extremely disastrous for the village and Naruto. Izumi calmed down and asked, "Does this have anything to do with the Uzumaki clan?" "Possibly," Jiraiya stated, uncertain. "I remember Tsunade telling me once about a chakra ability some Uzumaki possessed they called insight. This ability could instinctively guide an Uzumaki in learning Fuinjutsu and chakra control techniques. Even so, it still required years of trial and error for even an Uzumaki gifted with insight to become a Fuinjutsu master. It wasn't anything for them to improve on clan techniques, as long as they had the knowledge of what was going on in said technique. If Naruto possesses insight, then it still wouldn't explain the unnatural way he gained knowledge of Fuinjutsu. There is no way he could have learned enough in a month to create a simple sealing tag, much less change out a master tag. It may even be possible Naruto is still unaware of his Jinchuriki status and what has happened. However, I don't think we should just ask him either, since doing so would reveal our concerns. If he truly doesn't know, then we shouldn't tell him just yet." Ojo straightened up in his chair a little. "If Naruto is in control of the door, then we could still suppress the fox with Genjutsu. Control Naruto when he begins pulling out too much of the fox's chakra and make him slam the cage shut." "Are there any Uchiha strong enough to control the Kyuubi?" the 3rd Hokage asked sharply. Ojo quickly noticed the intense look on Hiruzen's face. "No, Lord Hokage, but that is irrelevant. We only need to control Naruto and make him stop pulling chakra from the seal. We can have an Uchiha with the knowledge and strength to control Naruto's mind around at all times. I will be assigning Kakashi Hatake to look after Naruto when he can. When he is too busy, then the responsibility will fall to Kurenai Yuhi," Sarutobi stated with absolute authority. The message had been clear. Lord Hokage only wanted shinobi he trusted to oversee Naruto's protection, and he didn't trust the Uchiha. The meeting had broken up after that, and Izumi had gone to the store to purchase Naruto's new outfit. After checking out of the hospital, the two siblings walked down the street headed to lunch. Naruto held tight to Izumi's hand as, once again, he was met with hard glares from the villagers. The little boy wasn't paying attention to where they were going until his sister stopped in front of a restaurant he had never been to before. Looking up, he read a sign that said, "Yummy Yummy Sushi." "Izumi, can WWE go get ramen again?" Naruto asked desperately. He had tried other restaurants before, but they would always refuse to serve him. Sometimes they would even physically throw him out the door. Noticing Naruto stutter, something he rarely did when it was just the two of them, Izumi looked down into her brother's nervous face. "You have to eat other things besides ramen, Naruto. If you don't get better nutrition, you'll never grow to your full height. Then again, if you want to stay little Naruto-chan your whole life, go ahead." Naruto pouted at his sister, calling him Chan. He knew he was smaller than other boys his age, but the Hokage assured him he would have a growth spurt eventually. Izumi hugged him again because of the cute pout, and dragged him inside. Izumi's happy mode didn't last long as they approached the hostess. The 30-something woman looked at both children and rudely said in a snobbish voice, "Sorry, but we are packed full at the moment. Perhaps somewhere else can serve you." Naruto hid behind his sister's leg at the glare the woman sent him. It confused him, however, when the woman glared at Izumi with almost equal hatred. The little redhead understood why the woman hated him, but what could she possibly have against his older sister? Izumi wasn't confused by the hatred the woman had for her. She had been here a few times and had loved the food, but every time she came someone gave her a hard time because she was an Uchiha. Some people still hated the clan because of past transgressions that occurred during the Warring Clans period, and several people outright blamed them for the Kyuubi attack. This was the first time anyone tried to refuse her service, and she figured it was mainly because of Naruto's presence. The young girl was about to turn and simply leave, when a woman approached from the back tables. "Is there a problem here, Amari-san?" the woman asked. Izumi turned her attention on the new person and saw she was a Hyuga. The lady was dressed in a very lovely light pink kimono. It had white cuffs with the Hyuga clan symbol around them and a ring. The woman's dark blue hair was almost to her knees. Her forehead was unmarked, making her a member of the main branch family. It finally dawned on Izumi just who the woman was. The hostess turned to address the Hyuga, speaking in a much nicer tone. "No, Lady Hitomi, I was just informing these children that we don't have room to set them, and they should try somewhere else." Hitomi looked at all the empty tables around the restaurant. She then turned back to the hostess and said, "There is plenty of room at my table, Amari-san." Amari Oshida was a 39-year-old woman who had lost her only chance for a better life the day the Kyuubi attacked the village. Doi Haruno, the old rich pervert she had coddled up to, had been crushed by a large building, ending her chance at money. She hated the little red-headed monster that acted like an innocent child while hiding behind his sister's leg, and she hated the little Uchiha bitch that dared to walk the streets of the village her clan attacked. As far as Amari was concerned, the two little urchins should be killed on general principle. She had served the girl a time or two, just because she hadn't wanted trouble with the Uchiha clan, but she would be damned if she would serve the demon. "Lady Hyuga, I wouldn't want to disrupt you and your daughter's meal. I'm sure there is a place down the street with more room," Amari explained quickly in a nervous voice, trying once again to kick the children out. "Nonsense, there will be no trouble, I'm sure," Hitomi said, smiling pleasantly at the hostess. She then turned to the siblings, smiling. "If you two don't mind eating with us, that is?" Izumi studied the woman closely and noticed her stomach was a little bigger than what she remembered from the few times spying her in the street. Obviously, she was several months pregnant. "I wouldn't want to impose on you and your family, Lady Hyuga," Izumi said, unsure. Amari seemed to smile brightly at this, until Hitomi said, "It's no bother really, and I'm sure Hinata would like a new friend." "Thank you, Lady Hyuga. Me and Naruto would be glad to dine with you and your daughter," Izumi said, smiling while giving a respectable bow. She then nudged Naruto in the shoulder. "What do we say, Naruto?" The little Uzumaki had been watching the events carefully. He was worried about meeting new people, but Lady Hyuga seemed nice. He hoped her daughter was nice too. Thank you, Lady Hyuga. He then too bowed. Hitomi smiled down at the little boy that reminded her so much of Kushina. She missed her friend dearly, and it hurt thinking about the fact this boy would have probably addressed her as aunt if things had been different. She and Mikoto had both tried to adopt him after the Kyuubi attack, but politics had prevented either the Uchiha or Hyuga clan from adopting the Jinchuriki. Looking at Izumi, who was also smiling at Naruto, reminded her of the boy's dark origin. She would never hate the girl for something her father did, but the idea of someone she loved like a sister being violated in such a way brought up a powerful rage from within her chest. She was forced to suppress it for the children's sake. As both kids walked further into the restaurant, Hitomi rounded on the hostess with cold eyes that made the harlot tremble in fear. "If I ever see you treating the son of Kushina Uzumaki so poorly again, I'll kill you." Hitomi quickly placed her happy smile back on her face as she caught up with the two siblings and led them to the table. Upon arriving, Izumi saw a young girl with long bangs and a short haircut the same color as Lady Hyuga's. She was wearing a kimono like her mom's with a silver butterfly hair clip on the left side of her head. She looked nervously around herself, until she noticed her mom returning. Another Hyuga sat stocky at the table, glaring at anyone who approached. He was wearing standard shinobi gear and had his headband tied around his forehead, signaling that he was of the side branch family. His short gray hair was slicked back, and he appeared to be a year or two older than Hitomi. "Any trouble, Ige-kun?" Hitomi asked the Hyuga jounin. "No, Lady Hitomi, no trouble." Taking notice of the two children with the Hyuga matriarch, he asked, "Who are these two?" Allow me to introduce Uchiha Izumi and her little brother Uzumaki Naruto. Children, this is my older brother Hyuga Ige and my daughter Hyuga Hinata, Hitomi said happily. She was really hoping that Naruto and Hinata could become as good of friends as her and Kushina had once been. Now if only Mikoto and Sasuke were here. The Hyuga matriarch thought sadly. Over the years Hitomi and Mikoto had grown apart. If Hitomi had to guess when they began to drift, then the answer would be the day they lost their sensei, Kimitada Ozaki. Mikoto, Hitomi, and Kushina has been one of the rarest genin team formations, an all-kunoichi team. Ozaki-sensei, who had been known for his womanizing ways, had complained excessively about being responsible for 3 young girls. It was believed that the third Hokage had named him sensei to teach the man a lesson about respecting kunoichi in general, not that he wasn't a good fit to teach the 3 girls. He had predominantly been an expert in taijutsu and genjutsu but was well-rounded in both ninjutsu and some fuinjutsu. He had been dubbed the Ghost of Konoha because of his ability to fight completely invisible under a camouflage genjutsu that most could only hold while standing still. Despite this ability, he was not a perverted peeping Tom, and had actually killed an enemy shinobi during the war, when he tried to ambush the 3 young kunoichi when they were bathing in a small pond. Whether the man was actually trying to peep or if he was just trying to kill 3 enemy kunoichi was irrelevant. The sheer amount of brutality Ozaki used to dispatch the fool to the next world was still discussed as a cautionary tale in the Hidden Stone to this day. Their beloved sensei fell in battle only 1 month before the end of the Third Great Shinobi War. Not long after all 3 kunoichi had made jounin, Mikoto last after maternity leave, they went on a mission with completely wrong intel. They were to take out an enemy supply route that was supposedly guarded by a small number of stone village shunin. What they had found was an S-ranked enemy combatant known as Hada the Mountain Berserker. He was a stone jounin that specialized in earth jutsu and taijutsu, known for casually killing over 3,000 sand shinobi without breaking a sweat, or taking any damage. His armor of mountain jutsu was said to be an inhuman display of earth chakra formation. After all the stone shunin were dead, it was just him and the 3-leaf jounin. The 3 kunoichi were on their last legs, and only Kushina's defensive techniques utilizing her adamantine sealing chains were keeping them alive. Ozaki-sensei had not been far from his former students and had felt Kushina's overwhelming chakra's reaction to the battle, and knew the 3 were in a desperate struggle. He wasted no time in dispatching his assassination target, a corrupt businessman that was giving aid to Hidden Stone, and hurried to save his students. Upon arrival, he quickly identified the enemy and realized he would be able to win in a straight fight, thanks to his current state. Using a powerful genjutsu of his own invention, Ozaki managed to grab onto Hada and lock their chakra together. With the stone jounin's chakra now mimicking his own, Ozaki used a suicide seal to destroy his own heart, destroying Hada's as well. The kunoichi had carried their fallen teacher home, where he received full honors for his service and dedication to the village. Even Hidden Sand had carved his name in a special place they had on their village wall to honor fallen allies. After the war, Hitomi and Mikoto had settled down with the husbands they had been promised to in their youth. Kushina had never really been a fan of arranged marriages, mainly because of what happened between her and Minato Namikaze, and had stubbornly refused to attend the ceremonies that enslaved her former teammates. Mikoto had postponed her marriage until after the war and never told her oldest he had been an accident. Kushina's stubborn refusal to be a bridesmaid had caused the rift that had formed after losing Ozaki-sensei to grow bigger. Soon Mikoto became pregnant with her second child and all 3 kunoichi reconciled over drinks. Well, Mikoto didn't drink obviously, but she had fun watching her 2 friends get wasted. Kushina had apologized for not being more supportive of their marriages, and for not being a better surrogate and to Itachi, though it was probably the huge amount of alcohol she consumed that made the extremely stubborn woman so apologetic. Hitomi reasoned with herself that this was probably the night her friend was attacked by Uchiha Ikari. Mikoto was forced to help Hitomi home because she couldn't handle alcohol like Kushina could. Not long afterwards, the Hyuga matriarch became pregnant with Hinata and the team gathered again to celebrate, this time at a tea shop. It had been fun forcing the Uzumaki kunoichi to have a formal lunch that she hated so much. She complained the whole time about the boring tea and dry rice cakes. Everything was going wonderful until the night Naruto himself was born and everything changed. After that horrible night, Mikoto had drifted away from Hitomi as the Uchiha clan took precedence, and the Hyuga matriarch was too lost in her own grief to try and hold on to the past. Kushina's dubbed Team Badass Kunoichi died the day the Fuinjutsu mistress left this world. The table they were setting at was only big enough for 4 people, but Hinata and Naruto were so small they sat on one side together. Ige Hyuga sat across from the younger kids and Hitomi next to her daughter. Izumi sat across from Lady Hyuga, next to her little brother. Both younger kids smiled shyly at one another but didn't say anything. Figuring this would never do, Hitomi asked the boy. So, Naruto, I heard through village gossip that you had begun to study Fuinjutsu. Was that the reason you were in the hospital? Hitomi remembered the first time Kushina had made an explosive tag. It had blown up right in her face, and she had to spend the night in the hospital due to a concussion. If not for her chains protecting her, the Uzumaki would have taken her own head off. The Hyuga mother was curious if something similar had happened to Naruto. Izumi decided to answer for her brother, so he didn't say anything he wasn't supposed to. No ma'am, Naruto had to give Sasuke bone marrow to save him from the damage done by a poison. He had an adverse effect from the anesthesia, so the Hokage ordered him to the hospital to be monitored. Hitomi was shocked by this for two reasons. The first was the fact someone had tried to kill little Sasuke. The second was that Naruto had been hospitalized for several days because of complications with anesthesia. Anyone that knew anything about the Uzumaki clan knew that poisons and toxins had little effect on them. The chances of Naruto having an allergy, or something similar, was not really possible. Looking towards her brother, she could see he was on the same page as her. Ige had a special rare ability of the Hyuga clan. He could activate the X-ray abilities of the Byakugan without activating the dojutsu. When he did this, he didn't have 360 degrees of vision, but whatever was right in front of him was fully exposed. The only tell that he was doing this was a more defined iris, but Izumi wasn't that observant. Hitomi's older brother had an angry look in his eyes as he tapped out on the table silently in special Hyuga code. They exchanged their hearts. Hitomi felt her blood go cold. What in the hell was Mikoto thinking, jeopardizing Naruto in such a way? It must have been the damned Uchiha clan. If not, then Hitomi was going to kill her former teammate. Looking across the table at Izumi, the Hyuga matriarch saw burning hot anger smoldering in her eyes, signaling that she was just as furious as Hitomi that Naruto had almost died to save Sasuke. Izumi, in an effort to change the subject and calm down, asked Hinata, "So, are you excited to be a big sister?" The little Hyuga blushed at being addressed and stuttered out, Why, yes. It has already been discovered that it's a Jijigo. She's worse than Naruto. Izumi thought to herself. She smiled politely at the cute little girl and grabbed her menu. Deciding on a few rolls and a platter of sashimi, the table signaled the waiter to take their order. He was a middle-aged man and was happy to serve them. He smiled kindly at the little children and left them crayons and paper to draw. As they waited on their food, Hitomi regaled the children with tales about Kushina and Mikoto from the academy. She was just explaining a rather funny yet mean trick Kushina had pulled on their sensei when she noticed what Naruto was drawing. In front of the boy was a red-colored seal that looked extraordinarily complex and difficult. She was extremely surprised to see the neatly drawn kanji and formula but had no idea what it did. "That's very nice, Naruto. Does it do anything special?" Hitomi asked kindly. The small boy looked down at his paper. He had drawn the seal when Lady Hyuga had been talking about Lady Mikoto's failed attempt to impress her instructors with a difficult kunai trick, and completely forgot about it. It's a rough outline of a SS space-time TT technique. Izumi suppressed a groan. Her little brother had no sense of secrecy whatsoever. Both older Hyuga were smiling good naturally at Naruto, obviously thinking he was joking or playing a game. The girl decided to change the subject quickly before either grown-up figured out the Uzumaki wasn't kidding. "So Ige-san, have you been on any dangerous missions lately?" The next 10 minutes were taken up by the Hyuga Jounin talking about a mission he just had in the land of tea. Apparently, there was supposedly a group of drug traffickers that had taken up shop somewhere along the coast, and the Hidden Leaf had been hired to take them out. The mission became more complicated than that though, when Ige discovered a slave trafficking ring instead. The Konoha shinobi were forced to abandon the drug traffickers to take out the more dangerous slavers. A task further complicated by the presence of minor rouge ninja. Izumi looked up just as their food arrived. She was grateful for the further distraction, saying, "Naruto, put your drawing up for now and eat your lunch. After this we're still going to the park." "Oh, the park. Would you mind if Hinata joined you?" Hitomi asked happily. She wanted her daughter to get out more and be sociable. "I'll probably head home as I'm getting tired, but Ige can go with you. You don't mind, do you, brother?" As if I had a choice. Ige thought to himself. This wasn't a side branch and main branch thing. This was a big brother to a younger pregnant sister and loving uncle thing. I would love to take my niece to the park. Izumi thought it over and couldn't really find a negative issue with the situation. Hinata could do with a friend as much as Naruto, and she appeared to be genuinely nice. Well, if Hinata wants to come, I'm okay with it. Hinata began taping her fingers in front of her, hanging her head low. She really wanted to go play with Naruto, but she also didn't want to leave her mommy. Looking up at her uncle Ige, she saw him giving an encouraging smile. "I'd love to go to the PP park." Izumi, Ige, and Hitomi watched amused as the two small children tried eating the sushi. One of the first pieces of sashimi Naruto tried was octopus. The sour face he made caused the two adults and one big sister to laugh out loud. Izumi helped him by handing over several pieces of salmon and tuna, her own two favorites. Her little brother seemed to have her taste in sashimi, and soon they were ordering more. After watching Naruto put away several platters of fish and rolls, the two adult Hyuga became a little concerned about the bill. When the waiter returned with the check, Izumi just smiled devilishly and gave him her Beisho's wallet. "That's sweet of you, Izumi, but we could have paid for you and us," Hitomi explained kindly. Izumi smirked and explained. "Don't worry, Hitomi-sama, just say it's my older brother Baisho making up for not looking out for Naruto, like he should have." Ige snorted, then coughed in his hand to cover it up. This girl was just as bad as his own sister, and if what he suspected about the Uchiha assassination incident was true, Baisho could never atone for his stupidity in Izumi's eyes. He addressed his niece and the redhead. "Let's get to the park. We might be able to visit the sweets shop later if you two kids behave." Outside the restaurant, Hitomi turned to Hinata and said, "You be good for your uncle, okay?" "I will, mommy," the little girl said shyly, looking at Naruto and Izumi. Hitomi just sighed to herself sadly. She had been the same way when she was a kid, but Kushina had brought her out of her shell. Hinata really didn't have anyone her age to help with the shyness, but maybe Naruto could in a way. The woman said goodbye to her daughter while kissing the top of her head. On the way to the park, Izumi stopped at a small store and purchased a ball. Making it to the play area, the group saw that it was mostly empty today. Izumi sat down on a bench nearby while Ige disappeared to do some light training. He told his niece that he wouldn't be far should she need him. Hinata didn't mind, as she was finally warming up to Izumi and Naruto. Both young children walked off to play catch with the large red ball. Naruto and Hinata got tired of passing the ball back and forth, so they began kicking it to see if they could get it past each other. Both children ran back and forth, laughing loudly, forgetting about their shyness as they played. Izumi watched them smiling and, if honest with herself, getting bored. The large meal of sushi had begun to make her sleepy. "Good afternoon, Izumi-san," the brown-haired girl heard from beside her. Turning quickly, embarrassed that someone had snuck up on her so easily, she saw Itachi Uchiha sitting next to her studying the children. "I wish Sasuke would be more like that, but he wants to grow up quickly." Izumi smothered her annoyance. Itachi wasn't just standing next to her, but sitting. She gave an unladylike snort at her friend's comment. This coming from a boy who graduated at the age of 7, and just now made Chunin only a few weeks shy of 10. Itachi just gave her his famous heartthrob smile. He then sobered up, thinking back on a memory. "I stopped being a child when I was 4 years old." The girl just gave him a sad smile, knowing what he was referring to. Towards the end of the Third War, Fugaku had taken Itachi to see a battlefield full of dead shinobi. He had wanted his oldest son to be exposed to war, and to understand the world they lived in. Izumi knew that one of Itachi's dreams was to end all war forever, and she actually thought he could do it. Watching the children in silence for a moment, Izumi asked her friend, "No Shursui today? Usually the two of you are inseparable." "He had a mission. Something to do with the border to the land of Earth," Itachi stated simply. There had been considerable tension building with Hidden Stone recently. It was something to do with the daimyo families of both the land of Earth and the land of Fire, but Izumi wasn't sure what the problem was. There were rumors about an arranged marriage proposal that didn't make sense. There were no boys or girls of acceptable marrying age, in close proximity, in either family. Itachi watched Naruto, looking for signs of lingering damage. "I'm sorry for what happened to your brother Izumi." Izumi's happy mood turned sour quickly. "Naruto or Baisho?" she asked venomously. "I was unaware you still counted Baisho as your brother," Itachi reprimanded the girl in a deadpan voice. He knew she was just angrily at the whole situation, but she didn't have to take it out on him. Izumi rolled her eyes and muttered sorry. She then sighed and said, "I still consider the bastard my brother, even if I'll never trust him with Naruto again. For the record, I am sorry about Sasuke getting hurt and the death of your grandmother." Both Uchiha sat quietly on the bench for a second before Izumi gave Itachi a questioning look. "If you had been there, would you have allowed what happened to happen? Would you have allowed them to risk Naruto to save your little brother Sasuke?" The young shinobi sat up stiffly before saying with absolute certainty, "I would have done my duty to my village and nothing more. Putting Naruto-san at risk placed the whole village at risk. I would have searched for another way to save Sasuke." The Uchiha watched as Hinata managed to get the ball past Naruto. She smiled happily at her accomplishment as the redhead ran to retrieve the ball. He kicked it back hard, but the little Hyuga was already quite flexible and agile for her age, so she stopped it easy. "We still haven't caught him," Itachi said, allowing anger to slip into his voice. Izumi was already aware of this. The assassin managed to give Lady Mikoto the slip and was still believed to be around the village. ANBU was on high alert, and the Uchiha police force had doubled the patrols in order to hopefully catch the bastard. If the man were really lucky, he could escape unharmed. If he was just lucky, then the ANBU would be the ones to catch him. If the Uchiha caught him, they planned to make an example out of the enemy ninja, and if Izumi or Itachi caught him, he would be begging for the Uchiha to save him. Izumi watched a little proud as her baby brother finally managed to get the ball past Hinata. She quickly ran smiling into the woods to get it. Itachi activated his Sharingan to keep an eye on the girl and saw the red ball bounce off the back of another child's head. The kid looked to be about 6 or 7 and wasn't happy about being hit. His 2 friends stood on either side of him as Hinata approached. Hearing a growl from beside him, Itachi turned to see Izumi staring off into the woods with her own Sharingan activated. He was startled to see the single-tone red eye in his friend's face and asked, "Since when could you use Sharingan?" "Ever since I heard Naruto was going to be okay," the angry girl said, standing up. She was about to go help Hinata when Itachi grabbed her arm. She looked down at him questioningly with a scowl on her pretty face. "I know you want to protect her and Naruto," Itachi said with a nod in her brother's direction. Izumi looked up to see Naruto running towards the woods to see what was keeping his friend. Itachi continued, "But some lessons can't be taught kindly. They are both going to be shinobi one day and must learn to handle their own problems." Izumi relaxed a little but still seemed tense. Itachi placated her more. "The most that will happen is a black eye or 2. This is one of the safest ways for both to learn this lesson." Izumi huffed and sat back down, keeping an eye on her little brother and his friend. She hated to admit it, but Itachi was right, annoyingly so, even if she didn't like it. Naruto ran as fast as he could towards the woods, smiling. This was one of the happiest days he could ever remember. He had never had a friend his own age before, and Hinata-chan was great. As he began to walk into the trees, he heard his friend sniffling. Thinking she may have tripped and hurt herself, Naruto moved a little quicker. "I'm SSS sorry, the BBB ball HH hit YYU," Naruto heard his friend say in a scared voice. "What do you guys think? Do you think the little Hyuga princess is sorry? Maybe we should make sure she's sorry, so she doesn't think it's okay to go around hitting peasants like us," Naruto heard an older boy sneer. Busting out of the trees and into a small clearing, the redhead saw 3 older boys standing around Hinata menacingly. The one in the middle was holding their red ball and standing too close to his friend for Naruto's liking. Without thinking, the Uzumaki heir placed himself in front of the smaller girl. "What do you want?" The leader of the little gang laughed cruelly at Naruto's stutter. "Well, look what we got here, guys. It's the little princess's bodyguard. Oh, I'm so scared. I wonder which one of you babies will piss yourselves first?" Both of the bullies' sidekicks laughed at their leader's joke. The mean kid, still holding the ball, shifted it to one hand and said angrily, "This came out of the trees and clocked me hard in the back of the head. I want you, and that spoiled brat behind you, to get down on your hands and knees and beg for forgiveness. That's what I want, you little waste of space." "I'm the 01WW who kicked the BBB ball. Hinata-chan DD didn't HH have an anything TT to do WW with it," Naruto explained, trying to sound as tough as he could. The truth was, he didn't want to get into a fight with this boy. "May WEPP please HH have our BB ball back." "Get down on your hands and knees and beg me to give it back, you little brat," the boy said, spitting each word into the smaller boy's face. Naruto was too nervous to really move, so did nothing. A little voice in the back of his head was telling him to take Hinata and run, and another was telling him to kick the older boy in the nuts. It dawned on Naruto that the second small voice sounded oddly like an older woman with a high-pitched voice. "Cough, Kushina, cough." "What, you need help getting on your knees?" the bully said in a low growl. One of his friends realized this might be going too far and walked forward. "Daichi, enough, just give the idiot back the ball." "You want some of this, Aoki?" The no-name Daichi spat at his friend. He then turned back to Naruto when Aoki backed off. "If you don't want to get on your knees, then I'll make you." Daichi took a step towards Naruto with his right arm raised to strike. Naruto instinctively took a step into the larger boy's guard and brought his left forearm up to block. Daichi's face registered shock as Naruto effortlessly stopped his swing. It was like he did it every day. The little redhead then brought his right fist up in an uppercut, aimed at the bully's abdomen. The moment the older boy took a threatening step towards Naruto, Itachi and Izumi had begun moving to intercede before the redhead took too many blows. The moment the small Uzumaki blocked the attack, though, they both panicked and ran faster. That block had been almost textbook perfect, with almost flawless chakra control, that was usually only achieved by years of practice and training. Naruto had reinforced his arm with perfect precision, also gripping the ground with chakra from his feet, and was now aiming an enhanced blow to his enemy's unprotected body. The Night Kyuubi attacked, Itachi had protected his mother and baby brother by shattering a piece of rubble that was about to crush them. The precision of chakra control he had used then was better than what Naruto was doing now, but the amount he had used was roughly only 1/3 the amount Naruto was using now. Uzumaki Naruto was going to make his first kill if they didn't stop that fist. Inch by agonizing inch, the fist of death sailed closer to the older boy's abdomen. Sharingan precision allowed Itachi and Izumi to trace the movement and guess exactly where the blow would land. Either the little redhead's hand would go completely through Daichi, or the impact force of the chakra-enhanced blow would literally rip the body in half. It was as the Uchiha Chunin and Academy student were halfway to intercept, they realized they couldn't possibly make it in time. Itachi had outrun Izumi and was only centimeters away when Naruto's fist connected with flesh. A loud smacking sound filled the clearing, causing nearby birds to take flight. Itachi and Izumi sighed in relief at the sight of Hyuga Ige gripping Naruto's closed fist. "That's enough, you two. I suggest you both break it up now," the older Hyuga said sternly. He glared down at Daichi with a hard glare that promised pain. The 7-year-old nearly wet his pants as he and his cronies left. He shot Naruto a look that clearly said, "This isn't over." Ige walked over to the ball the older boy had dropped when he tried to block Naruto's attack. He reached down and picked it up, handing it to Izumi. "I thank you for letting Hinata play with Naruto, and hopefully it can happen again sometime soon. I think it's time we headed home though." Naruto and Hinata stood silently to the side feeling sad. Either one wanted to say goodbye to their new friend. Izumi walked over to her little brother carrying the ball and said, "You're right, Ige-san. Naruto, say goodbye to Hinata and let's head home." Naruto looked to Hinata wondering how he should do this. He had never said goodbye to a friend before and didn't know if he should shake her hand or wave. The indigo-haired girl stepped into her friend and gave him a big hug. Not really knowing how to respond, the little Uzumaki just stood there dumbly. Hinata broke away quickly and hid behind her uncle's leg, smiling shyly at Naruto. Ige bent down and picked up his niece. He gave a small curt nod to everyone and shined away. Itachi had noticed that the older man had only used his left hand to grab the ball and to pick up the girl. He had caught Naruto's fist with his right and, more than likely, broke a few bones in his palm. Judging by the fact Hyuga Ige was an accomplished shinobi, the level of force in Naruto's punch was, at the most, greater than what most low-level jounin were capable of. He turned to watch Izumi leading her brother out of the clearing, still holding his hand. She was smiling down at him in a loving big sister fashion, while the redhead looked up at her happily. To look at Naruto, you would never think he could kill a man with a single blow. He didn't realize what he was doing, Itachi thought to himself. That was all instinctive. Somehow, Naruto had gained a highly advanced taijutsu technique, and he didn't even know it. He had no idea he had almost killed that boy. Naruto's Fuinjutsu cave, morning. Naruto looked down at his feet and examined the seal he had just finished drawing, one final time. The young boy had studied Fuinjutsu for the last 3 years and managed to create a space-slash-time technique based on the second Hokage's jutsu, but he didn't think it was nearly enough to stop what was coming. Ever since he had met the Sage of Six Paths, Naruto had struggled for a way to spy on the Uchiha clan. The redhead's work had paid off, but the information was troubling. Naruto had found a way to use his space-slash-time jutsu to spy with. The wormhole jutsu worked like the second Hokage's original, using sealed tags as markers to go to and from various marked areas. Instead of instant travel though, Naruto opened wormholes that he could pass through. Each tag allowed him to open a 6-foot hole, in a 15-yard radius, anywhere around the seal. Naruto could also sense anything in the radius field to know what was around, before activating the technique. This wasn't a unique ability since the fourth jutsu did the same thing. That was one of Minato Namikaze's own upgrades to Tobirama Senju's legendary jutsu. What Naruto had done to spy was simple. He could open a small wormhole to hear and see through. After placing his tags all over the Uchiha compound, and a few other areas inside the village, there weren't many places he couldn't get to quickly or eavesdrop on. The Naka Shrine had been the most difficult to tag, but the Uzumaki had managed to place a seal on both sides of the building. This allowed his sensory area to cover the whole shrine, as well as the secret area underneath. After all of Naruto's spying had learned the Uchiha rebellion was close at hand, the Hokage was still opposed to destroying the clan before they could rebel. Baisho was well aware of the inevitable rebellion and was a key player. The Leaf Village elders and a man named Danzo wanted to strike first. Itachi Uchiha and Shursui Uchiha were loyal to the village and also spying for the Hokage. And his sister Izumi was aware that something was wrong, but had no idea about the planned revolt. Other than gathering information, Naruto had also been trying to invent new jutsu. He had researched famous ninja from both the Leaf Village and other hidden villages, especially the Kages. The young Uzumaki wanted to learn what made them so powerful. After comparing individual shinobi, He had come to one conclusion: almost every one of them had their own unique style. Even if they didn't use a jutsu they invented themselves, each one improved a technique they learned so much they became world famous for it. The best example was the 4th Hokage's improvements to the 2nd Hokage's Flying Thunder God technique. Minato Namikaze had been so well known for the jutsu, other villages thought he made it himself. Naruto knew his wormhole jutsu would probably be a legendary technique one day, but he wasn't strong enough with it yet to stop what was coming. If his new Fuinjutsu project worked the way it was supposed to, then the Uzumaki would have succeeded in making an artificial Kekkai Genkai. It was his hope that with both the space/time technique and the artificial blood limit he could do whatever was necessary to save the Uchiha clan and village. Naruto was hidden inside a small cave in the Hokage mountain. He had found it 2 years ago when he was out exploring. The Uzumaki had decided to use it as a hidden workshop for his Fuinjutsu experiments, since it appeared no one had been in it for a while. He sealed the entrance, then placed a teleport tag to keep access. Another tag recycled air so he wouldn't suffocate. At the moment the ceiling and walls were covered in ink markings that all connected down at the redhead's feet. Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, the little Uzumaki took his shirt off and laid on the ground. Naruto brought his hands up in front of his face and made the sign for focus. He then balled his little hands into fists and held them down at his side, gritting his teeth against the pain. All around the room the ink markings began to wiggle and move as if they were alive. Each one began to snake their way across the walls and ground to forcibly merge themselves into Naruto's exposed back. Despite the feeling of his skin burning, the young boy didn't give out a scream or move. To do so would cause the formula to not set properly. If the formula failed, it could cripple or kill him. After the ordeal that lasted only a few seconds, Naruto laid on the ground panting hard and sweating. Every muscle in his body burned. There was now a tattoo in the middle of his chest that had the kanji for form inside a circular formula, and another on his back with the kanji for creation also inside a circle formula. Despite the lingering feelings of pain, the redhead couldn't help but smile. His living chakra was examining the tattoos to determine how they reacted to his body and had concluded that his invention worked perfectly. Naruto Uzumaki, age 7, had just created an artificial Kekkai Genkai. Naruto, Izumi, and Beisho's house, afternoon. Izumi stood over her little brother helping him get dressed. Today was Hinata's 7th birthday and Naruto was one of the kids, not related to the little heiress, that was invited. He was wearing the new dark gray kimono Izumi had bought him that was polka-dotted with Uchiha and Uzumaki clan insignias. "Are you feeling okay, Naruto? You look like you didn't sleep well," the older girl asked, concerned. Naruto had a slight guilty look on his face as he explained in a subdued demeanor. "I'm fine, Izumi. I just didn't get a lot of sleep last night because I was reading my scrolls." The Uchiha gave her baby brother a hard look and said in an angry voice, "We've talked about this before, Naruto. You can't stay up all night studying Fuinjutsu. If you don't sleep enough, then you could have problems concentrating throughout the day." The little redhead looked down at his feet sadly. He felt guilty about lying, but there was no way he was telling his overprotective sister the real reason he was tired. He still had a few aches and pains from the life-threatening jutsu he just created and hadn't fully recovered his stamina yet. Thinking about the first time he risked his life in creating a jutsu still brought a phantom itch to his right arm. The first technique Naruto ever perfected was a medical jutsu based on the seals used to help him recover after the surgery. Thanks to his living chakra, the young Uzumaki knew instinctively that he could never use traditional medical jutsu. However, he figured that having a medical technique would aid him in protecting the ones he loved, so he decided to try and create one that avoided the need for precise chakra control. The big issue with medical jutsu was one needed amazing chakra control so they could safely evacuate a patient's chakra while applying their own without causing further damage to the already injured patient. The actual healing and repairing were a matter of knowing what needed to be done and making the jutsu perform the work correctly. Naruto had wondered to himself why the medic couldn't just use the patient's chakra to heal the injury. This thought led to the ninjutsu seal tag on Naruto's right forearm. It spread from elbow to wrist and allowed him to absorb a small amount of another person's chakra, match his chakra signature temporarily with theirs, change it to self-healing energy, and finally funnel it back into the patient's body. From there the jutsu would target the damaged area and repair the injury, exactly like some skilled medics could self-heal themselves, therefore negating the need for precise chakra control. The affected person's body recognized the chakra as their own, and didn't fight back against it. The first time Naruto ever used the jutsu was when he saved Lady Hyuga. Not long after Hinata's little sister was born, Hitomi began to get sick and weak. It took some time to discover that she had been poisoned with a large amount of chakra metal. The foreign material gathered in her major organs and bloodstream causing severe damage. Also, because of the chakra-absorbing nature of the metal, traditional medical jutsu couldn't remove it faster than the absorbing rate. The damage to Hitomi's body finally resulted in her slipping into a coma. The amount of tissue necrosis eventually made continuing medical jutsu too dangerous. Hayashi and Hinata were preparing themselves for the inevitable death of the Hyuga matriarch when Naruto asked to try and save her. It showed just how desperate the Hyuga clan leader was to save his wife that the Uzumaki was even allowed to attempt his technique. Naruto was able to flood Hitomi's body with so much self-healing chakra that it repaired all damage done faster than the chakra metal could absorb. After that, since the medical staff now knew the problem, a basic water jutsu was used with Lady Hyuga's own blood to flush out the metal. Normally this wouldn't be possible, but since Naruto's Uzumaki mystic Fuinjutsu seal kept a patient in a constant state of rapid self-healing, it was. Lady Hitomi was saved, but they never found out who tried to kill her. The only thing anyone was sure of was that the poisoning was done right after Hanabi was born, but all medical staff present at the time were cleared of suspicion by an investigation. At first Izumi had been proud of her little brother's accomplishment. It wasn't until after Lord Third and Ojo had examined Naruto's arm that she became furious. They informed her that to create the jutsu, Naruto had to use the forced scrying method. This was the seal formula creating method that allowed drawn kanji to forcibly stitched onto a person's body, the technique the young Uzumaki just used to create his artificial Kekkai Genkai. The danger came from if the seals weren't drawn correctly. When they were compressed onto living flesh, there was a danger of implosion or explosion. After hearing this, Izumi had slapped Naruto upside his head and asked him what he had been thinking trying something like that on his own. Ojo had also been disappointed in the young boy since it was he who showed Naruto a book detailing the method in the first place. Today Naruto had broken his promise to never do something that stupid again without help. Izumi, dressed in a lovely red kimono, picked up the wrapped present from the table. She then took Naruto's hand and walked out of their little house. Both siblings began to make their way down the street heading for the Hyuga clan compound. Naruto looked up at his big sister and smiled happily. He would rather Izumi be alive and angry at him rather than dead. With each passing day, the inevitable conflict between the Uchiha clan and Konoha was approaching, and Naruto knew he had to be ready to fight for his precious people. Hyuga clan compound, a few hours later. Hayashi Hyuga looked around his clan's park at all the kids in attendance for Hinata's special day. Though he kept the image of a stern father and clan head, there was a warm, happy glow in his heart. His little family meant the world to him, and his daughters were second to none. Both his cute princesses had him wrapped around their fingers even if they didn't know it. Over at a small table which held the presents, Hitomi sat with a few other parents holding Hanabi. His youngest daughter was wearing a pink kimono decorated with butterflies, an exact copy of her big sister's. The Hyuga Council hated all these breaks in tradition, but Hayashi could care less what they wanted. Between the old assholes glaring or his wife not giving him any, he'd take the glaring any day. Hitomi was determined that their daughters and nephew Niji be allowed the childhood that the previous generation was denied, and he was too weak-willed to argue. Thinking about Niji made Hayashi's eyes focus to a corner of the grounds where the young boy stood sulking. His nephew hadn't bothered to dress up for the party and was wearing a pair of dark gray shorts and a light gray shirt with his forehead wrapped in bandages. The young boy would rather be off training, but Hitomi had insisted he come. She had told him he could invite some friends from his academy class, but it would seem Niji had decided not to, as none had showed up. Bored, Hayashi walked over to his wife, who was talking to Blossom Namikaze. The pink-haired woman was going on about the children and who would be cute together. Hitomi was trying to be polite, but Hayashi could tell his wife wanted to strangle the civilian woman. Honestly, if someone else was having the exact same conversation with her, Hitomi would have been interested. However, since it was in his wife's opinion the civilian harlot, Hitomi could care less. Hayashi decided to save the pink-haired woman from a thrashing and walked over to stand by his wife. Looking up, Blossom saw the Hyuga clan head approaching. "Hello Hayashi-san, me and Hitomi-san have been discussing the children. It would seem one of your own clansmen has interested in Uchiha Izumi." Looking across the lot to the older kids' table, Hayashi saw Hyuga Maeda trying to flirt with Naruto's older sister and any other young girl in ogling distance. The boy was almost 13 and a member of the main branch. He had developed an appreciation for the opposite sex at a young age, completely skipping the cootie stage, and believed any lady that he talked to should feel honored. Hayashi knew so much about the boy since a few elders had hinted at matching him with Hinata. Not that Hitomi would ever let that happen, of course. He had actually caught her writing Uzumaki Hinata on a piece of paper the other day. When he asked her what she was doing, his wife had simply said, "Just testing it out." Looking back at the pink-haired woman, Hayashi noted, "If he doesn't learn what that angry look on Uchiha Izumi's face means soon, we're going to have to save him from a beating." Hearing a shy laugh Hayashi knew to be Naruto's, his eyes found the little Uzumaki and Hinata sitting at the cake table. Both children were nervous as the other kids laughed and played around them. The only two kids seating with them were the Nara heir and the Akimichi heir. Nara Shikamaru appeared to be asleep, but at least Akimichi Choji was trying to talk with Naruto. Hinata was shyly hiding her face behind the redhead's shoulder, as she still didn't like talking with new people. He watched happily as Yamanaka Ino and Namikaze Sakura approached Hinata from behind with an arm full of flowers. The little blonde and pink-haired girl smiled kindly as they tapped her shoulder. They seemed to indicate the flowers they were holding as they asked Hinata something. Hayashi couldn't make out what was asked, but it caused her face to gain a more nervous look. As his oldest gave her trademark apprehensive finger tap, Izumi came to the rescue. She talked things over with the younger girls before all four went off by themselves. Hinata gave Naruto a small hug before leaving him though. Hayashi almost broke his stock Hyuga facade by chuckling at the Uchiha girl's relieved face at getting away from the persistent Maeda. "Oh, that's so cute!" Blossom exclaimed at Hinata's hug. "How long have those two been friends?" Hitomi was taken back a little when she realized the woman, who she had such a low opinion of, was giving a nice compliment to Uzumaki Naruto. She figured Blossom would be just like most civilians regarding the boy's very existence. She recovered and said, "They have been friends for about 3 years. Naruto-san actually saved my life not long after Hanabi was born." Blossom smiled down at the little girl wrapped in her pink kimono. The youngest Hyuga smiled back at Lady Namikaze, clearly showing a much more outgoing manner than her older sister. Blossom looked back up at Hitomi and asked uncertainly, "I had heard rumors. The birth was difficult." "Something like that," Hayashi answered quickly. The truth about the assassination attempt had been covered up. Certain complications arose that made most medical jutsu almost completely useless. Thankfully, Naruto-san invented a medical Fuinjutsu, the Uzumaki mystical healing seal, that was able to work. Blossom seemed to absorb the information as she watched her daughter play with the other girls. "Fuinjutsu, that's impressive. My Sakura-chan has been reading a few beginner's books on the subject. She wants to be just like her father." Hayashi noticed Hitomi's thoughtful look. As much as Minato disliked being married to Blossom, mainly because she wasn't Kushina, he had loved his little girl very much. Little Sakura had only been 1 month old when the 4th Hokage gave his life to protect the village. "I'm sure Naruto-san would like a study partner." Hitomi began, giving the pink-haired woman an inquisitive look. "Of course, that would be up to Uchiha Ojo more than Naruto. He is the one who is training the boy in Fuinjutsu." "She would like that," Lady Namikaze said with a smile. "Master Jiraiya visits as often as he can, and has become somewhat of a grandfather, but he has other duties to the village and no time to teach Sakura." Hitomi was taken back by Blossom's honest, affectionate reaction to Naruto and Sakura studying together, and was speechless. Hayashi inquired to give his wife time to gather her thoughts. "I'm surprised you would let Master Jiraiya near Sakura given his reputation and habits. Not that I think he would ever have anything but a grandfather's love for Sakura, but if she were to accidentally get her hands on one of his books." Hayashi left the statement open to gauge the woman's response. A look of annoyance crossed Blossom's lovely face. "Humph, he doesn't bring that trash into my house, or anywhere around Sakura. I made it clear to him, when he started visiting, I would kick him out if I saw one orange-covered book." Hayashi didn't comment as he saw Hitomi smirk. His wife then stated, "I don't mean to offend you, Blossom-san, but I figured you would share in the animosity that most civilians have for Naruto-san. I didn't believe you would be open to the idea of your daughter and the young Uzumaki heir training together." "I guess that would be what most would think," Blossom began sadly. "Most civilians don't like the boy, but I'm not most civilians. My husband was the 4th Hokage, and we talked many long hours about Fuinjutsu, actually to the point I'm actually quite knowledgeable of the subject. I can't do anything with that knowledge but pass it on to Sakura though. I have more faith in my late husband to think for 1 second that Naruto-san is anything more than a small boy, or that anything Minato made would break easy." Hitomi felt a little guilty about calling the woman out on such a sensitive subject, but she had to know where Blossom stood before introducing her to Naruto. She would never allow anyone to hurt Kushina's son if she could help it. Hayashi looked back at his oldest daughter and saw her making flower wreaths with Ino and Sakura. Izumi sat with them on the grass and would occasionally give an amused smirk back at the table she just left. Wondering what was so funny, the Hyuga clan head looked over and shook his head disappointingly. "Excuse me, dear, I must go and save Maeda from Inuzuka Hana." Both women looked over to where Hayashi indicated and saw an 11-year-old girl strangling the light blue-haired boy. She had apparently tackled him behind the table and had him from behind in a chokehold. Her 3 dogs weren't around as they had run off to play with her little brother Kiba and a few other kids. Blossom chuckled. "That boy really doesn't have much luck with the girls, does he?" A little while later, Naruto looked around as everyone gathered around his best friend and the presents. There wasn't too many, but some were large-looking. He really hoped Hinata loved his gift. It had taken him a month to make. Hitomi walked forward with a large box and placed it in front of the girl. Hanabi saw she was close to her older sister and began to reach out for her. Hinata never let an opportunity to hold her baby sister pass and gladly sat Hanabi in her lap. The lavender-haired girl hugged her baby sister and asked, "Do you want to help me open presents, Hanabi?" The little girl laughed and clapped her hands happily. "Yes, I help Sissy." Hitomi smiled at her daughters, feeling blessed to have such two wonderful angels. Naruto barely heard someone behind him grumble, "That's cute, why couldn't I have had a little sister instead of a brother?" Turning, the little redhead saw an older girl with long brown hair and red markings on her cheeks. She was standing next to Hinata's uncle Ige. The man's face was vacant of any expression, but the hand he kept on the girl's shoulder spoke for him. She had apparently done something to get in trouble. Hinata ripped off the wrapping paper of the box her mom gave and looked inside. It contained an assortment of coloring books and new clothes. She then thanked her parents and placed the box aside. Hanabi gladly played with the sparkling pink paper Hinata had discarded. Following her parents' gift, Hinata got a practice kunai set from the Inuzuka clan, a large box of crowns from the Akimichi clan, a book on flower pressing from the Yamanaka clan, and a few other odds and ends from various other clans. Finally, Hinata came to Naruto's present. It was actually the smallest box there. All wrapped up in orange paper, the present didn't look very grand. Hinata opened it as Hanabi reached for the large orange bow on top. "Naruto-kun, this is beautiful," Hinata said, so shocked she forgot to stutter. The little girl pulled out a silver chain necklace that had silver locket hanging from it. The locket wasn't big, only 4 inches, but it had the Hyuga clan emblem embroidered on it. Hinata opened it to see an odd-looking reddish metal-like plate on the inside with a picture of her and Naruto holding Hanabi on the other side. She looked at Naruto and asked, "What's the metal P-plate for?" Naruto nervous hugged himself. "If you channel chakra into the necklace, then an image appears." Hinata concentrated for a second. The necklace started to glow a slight blue lavender color, and then a deep lavender butterfly appeared on the plate. It slowly began to flap its wings. Everyone was in shock by the awesome display. "That's so cool. Where did you get it?" Kiba exclaimed, standing next to Naruto. The redhead took a small step back from Kiba's loud shouting and explained, "I made it." Hitomi took the necklace from Hinata and examined it. She noticed that despite first glances, the gift was not made from silver. The texture was more stone or marble, and the red plate felt like metal but looked like wood. She passed it to Hayashi so he could look. "Most impressive, Naruto-san. This is Fuinjutsu forging, I believe?" Why yes sir," Naruto nervously answered Hinata's father. "Fuinjutsu?" Sakura asked excitedly. Hayashi knew Naruto would have a hard time explaining, so he did. Fuinjutsu forging is the process of using seals to reform an object into something new. Naruto took stone and changed the shape to be a chain and locket. He then used seals to augment the pigmentation to give it a silver color and shine. He also did the same thing with a piece of wood for the red metal-like plate inside the locket. Sakura gave Naruto a starstruck look that made him nervous. Hinata gave Sakura a small glare that made her mother cheer in her head. Hayashi handed the necklace back to his daughter, and everyone went to get food and cake. As the party began to wind down, Hitomi brought Blossom over to meet Izumi and Naruto. Sakura followed her mom as she was hoping to talk with the redhead about Fuinjutsu. "Izumi-san, Naruto-san, allow me to introduce Lady Blossom Namikaze and her daughter Sakura." Both pink-haired Namikazes shook hands with Naruto and Izumi. The Uchiha was sizing Blossom up as she didn't know very much about her. All she knew was the Haruno clan was a rich civilian family that had helped build the village with their vast wealth. Lady Namikaze was the oldest child of the current head. Lord Forth had married her, under the protest of several people, to wipe clean the village's mounting debt to several civilian clans. Izumi had heard stories about Blossom that were not very flattering. Several people said the marriage had been her idea, and Lord Haruno just went along with it since he gave his spoiled daughter whatever she wanted. Whether it was the woman or the civilian council's idea was irrelevant, their plans ended the Forth's life. "It's nice to meet you both," Izumi said with a smile. She then grabbed Naruto, who was trying to hide behind her leg, and nudged him forward. Hi. The Uzumaki managed to stutter out. Izumi gave Sakura an appraising look. "So, are you going to go to the academy next year?" "Of course I am," Sakura said boldly. "I wanted to enter when I was 6, but mother made me wait. Jiraiya already taught me a jutsu." Sakura began a small series of hand signs ending in snake. Her straight long hair began to take on a wilder look as it stood up a little, becoming like needles. The little girl smiled from under her pink armor covering, even though everyone could see she was struggling to keep the technique going. What do you think? She asked, panting. Ninja art, needle jizo. Izumi felt the radical hairstyle to see how strong it was. The tips of the points were very sharp, but the actual body of hair was still soft. Clearly the girl needed work on this ability before she could use it in an actual fight. Not bad, but it needs work, Izumi stated honestly. Still a good solid building block for a kunoichi of your age. Sakura had started to pout but smiled at the compliment. It felt good to be called a kunoichi by the older girl. She then looked at the quietest boy she ever met. He was staring down at his feet and seemed smaller somehow. You don't talk much, do you, Naruto? She joked kindly. The poor boy seemed to shrink in on himself more as he stood by his sister. Sakura felt guilty about her comment, even though she wasn't trying to be mean. So, do you know any jutsu, Naruto-san? The girl asked in hopes of snapping the redhead out of his shy demeanor. And my older BB brother taught me a wind jutsu. Izumi frowned at the mention of that day. A month ago, her brother Baisho had come home angry because Itachi had been bragging about Sasuke's fireball jutsu. Apparently Fugaku's youngest son had mastered the jutsu in a day and could release a perfect fireball that traveled 50 yards. This was a feat most jounin couldn't accomplish. Baisho had taken Naruto to a training ground and drilled him for hours on 3 wind techniques called vacuum blast, vacuum bullets, and twister dome defense. Several grueling hours later Naruto still hadn't learned the jutsu, and her older brother gave up in disgust. Later Baisho confided in Izumi that he had stolen those techniques from Danzo Shimura during an intense sparring drill not long after they had adopted Naruto. This had worried the girl since she didn't want the old war hawk coming after Naruto because he knew some of his wind jutsu. What neither Uchiha knew was Naruto had learned the jutsu, he just didn't want Baisho to know how strong he was. Another thing was Danzo had purposely allowed the older Uchiha to copy his techniques so he could teach them to Naruto. After all, what use was a weak weapon? Blossom smiled down at the little boy. It's good your brother shows an interest in your shinobi studies. Do you train with him often? Only when he's not busy, Izumi said, scratching her head awkwardly. Usually I train Naruto, or Master Ojo does. From there the conversation circled around to Naruto's Fuinjutsu training and if Sakura could join him. Izumi explained how they needed to ask Master Ojo. The Uchiha Kunoichi then told Blossom that she would find out if the old man wouldn't mind. Izumi didn't see how it would be a problem since Ojo loved children, and Sakura was the 4th's daughter. Hinata and Ino approached the group soon after to see if Sakura wanted to play some more. Ino also asked the Uzumaki more about the beautiful necklace he had made the birthday girl and he quietly answered her questions. Hitomi and Hayashi left to put Hanabi down for a nap and Izumi decided it was time to head home. Naruto hugged Hinata goodbye and followed his big sister out the gate. Izumi sat at her kitchen table eating dinner with her 2 brothers. Both boys were quiet as they ate the chicken curry and rice she had prepared. It was late at night, but her brother was still in uniform since he was going back to work. She couldn't help but feel tension in the air. Naruto was more nervous than usual, and would give Baisho sad looks when he thought no one was looking. For the last 6 months he had studied Fuinjutsu alongside Sakura. Ojo had agreed to teach the girl after a private meeting with Lady Namikaze and Naruto had been happy to get a new friend. Izumi didn't like seeing him sad about anything. As for her older brother, he seemed distracted. Baisho had come home earlier troubled about something but snapped at Izumi when she asked him what was wrong. After showering and getting ready for dinner, he had showed up at the table dressed to go back out again. All he said was there was overtime at the station, and he was taking it. The silence was getting on her nerves, so she asked her youngest brother. So, Naruto, are you and Sakura working on any projects with Master Ojo? And no, not really. Naruto said, poking at his bowl with his chopsticks. Sakura is still trying to get her W writing speed down F faster. I thought we talked about your stutter. Baisho stated, annoyed. It's unbecoming of a ninja. Izumi glared at Baisho as Naruto looked down in shame. The only reason the redhead even stuttered was because of his older brother's presence. The white-haired boy threw his chopsticks down in disgust and stood up. I need to get going, Baisho said harshly as he made his way for the door. Both Izumi and Naruto heard the loud slam as he left. Izumi looked at Baisho's half-eaten bowl annoyed. She was the only one that did the cooking as Naruto was too small and Baisho couldn't boil water. It really angered her when she put the time and effort into a meal that wasn't appreciated. Luckily, she knew Naruto would eat his bowl and the giant pot on the stove. Hardly anything went to waste with an Uzumaki around. "Don't worry about it, Naruto," Izumi said, rubbing her brother's soft hair affectionately. "You know he loves you as much as I do. He just wants you to be strong. Why don't you show him your new seal tomorrow?" Naruto looked down at his left arm. He had come up with an idea to use genjutsu based on the design of his Uzumaki mystical healing seal. Ojo had helped him write out the kanji and supervise the forced scrying. Sakura had watched fascinated by the whole process and wanted to try it, despite the obvious pain it inflicted. Genjutsu was the art of attacking someone's mind. There were two ways to do this. You could either affect one of the five senses to trick the brain into believing something not true, or you could attack the brain directly. However, most genjutsu required extraordinarily little chakra, making them almost impossible for Naruto to perform. If you applied too much chakra, the genjutsu would unravel before it could actually do anything. The seal on his arm measured his chakra as it flowed through a set of pre-made jutsu kanji that molded the genjutsu for him. The drawback was he only had a set number of genjutsu he could use, and he had to physically touch his target with his left arm or hand. As he and Izumi finished their meal in silence, Naruto thought back on the last 6 months. Sakura and her mom were genuinely nice people who were truly kind to him. His new friend had even introduced him to Kakashi Hatake, a famous shinobi trained by the fourth himself. The little redhead still felt guilty about what happened 2 months ago though, even if it wasn't intentional. Sakura and Naruto had been having a practice spar behind Ojo's house when Kakashi approached them. He had taken a little time in correcting their stances when Sakura began to beg him to demonstrate the Rasengan. Reluctantly, he showed his sensei's legendary jutsu to the two kids. The issue was Naruto had learned the tree walking and water walking by watching them being used and feeling how the chakra was applied. The Rasengan was just a much more advanced form of chakra manipulation, just with much more force and power. It had only taken him 3 days of contemplation to work the jutsu himself. Afterwards, he felt guilty when he realized that he stole Sakura's dad's jutsu. He decided to pay the pink-haired girl back by helping her master the Flying Thunder God and Needle Jizo. So far progress was slow with the teleportation, but Sakura could now make a sold-sharp pink armor that covered her whole body. Izumi stood up and placed her and Beisho's bowls in the sink. She then left to go out back for some light exercise. Naruto almost ate the entire pot and then washed the dishes. Setting them in the rack to dry, the redhead decided to go and take a shower. Stepping out of the hot water after showering, Naruto walked to the sink to brush his teeth. Wiping the glass clean of mist, he saw the proof of his artificial Kekkai Genkai reflected back at him. The kanji 4 form was still as visible today as it had been when he first completed his project. It still made him smile when he thought about how everyone would react to seeing his sweet release. The sweet release was exactly how it sounded, candy-style jutsu. 1. It was the feat he achieved when he sealed various candies inside his own chakra network. Experimenting with it was actually going very well, and its capabilities were even better than what he had hoped they would be. One interesting thing the Uzumaki had discovered was he could channel higher chakra changes through his candy. It started with wind style. Naruto figured since he already knew a few wind jutsu that learning to channel pure wind chakra would be the easiest. After that he worked with lightning because he had discovered several scrolls that detailed various famous jutsu that he was trying to duplicate. His peppermint was actually the easiest to channel chakra with, and he could already form it into kunai and shuriken at will. 2. After wind and lightning, Naruto moved on to earth. He didn't really have a reason other than supposable channeling earth chakra could allow one to strengthen the durability of themselves and other constructs. This was when he discovered by accident that he could use higher chakra changes with his sweet release. Naruto had channeled wind chakra to his right hand and earth to his left. He then created a peppermint kunai to see if it would be extremely sharp and denser. He had found the peppermint form of his sweet release was weaker than steel and was hoping earth chakra would strengthen it. 3. At first nothing seemed different than any other time he made a peppermint kunai. It was red and white striped from tip to handle and weighed the same as always. He threw the knife at a tree to see if it would cut deeper and felt a kind of pull in his mind. When he focused on the sensation, the kunai stopped mid-flight and just hung in the air. He then gave a mental pull and the knife flew back to his hand. He had researched the phenomenon and realized what he had done was recreate the magnet release. This was a powerful bloodline limit that was well known to be found in 3 of the 5 major shinobi villages. 2 of the most powerful users ever known came from Hidden Sand. They were the 3rd and 4th Kazekage. The 3rd Kazekage learned to use his magnet release by controlling large amounts of iron sand, and the 4th did the same with gold. Naruto had wondered why the 4th Kazekage used gold instead of iron, but the books he read never really gave that information. Maybe the 4th wasn't as strong as the 3rd and gold was lighter, meaning it took less chakra to manipulate. There was a rumor that the third Tsuchikage of Hidden Stone used magnet release to fly, but no one was actually sure. Naruto had been overly thrilled when he figured out what he was doing. He honestly didn't understand where the ability came from. The only explanation was a further manifestation of his yin/yang release channeled through his sweet release. However, that was all it would channel through. All attempts to magnetize other objects, like normal kunai and animals, had proven ineffective. It would seem all his abilities to channel higher chakra could only be preformed through the sweet release. Despite the drawback, it wasn't too big a deal. The information he found on the third and fourth Kazekage gave him a cool idea. An ultimate defensive jutsu called the Drifting Cocoa Cloud. He could generate large amounts of cocoa and powdered peppermint to form an ever-shifting mass to block and deal out damage just by thought alone. The best part was he had it tied into a special sensor seal on the back of his neck that would trigger the jutsu the moment an attack was sensed. This truly made it an ultimate defense. Naruto had also learned, while reading up on the Hidden Stone Village, that lighting in Earth Chakra could grant you the explosion release. This one, however, made the shy boy nervous. The last thing he wanted to do was blow himself up and therefore hadn't done much with the knowledge. He was perfecting what he had so far with the wind, lighting, and magnet style. Generating Earth Chakra was only to strengthen his sweet release constructs. Naruto finished brushing his teeth and left for his room. Looking around the almost completely orange space, the little boy spotted the picture of him and Baisho seating on his nightstand. The two brothers had posed for the photo at Izumi's insistence. Both were standing under the tree in the backyard wearing their normal attire. It was Izumi's 12th birthday 7 weeks ago. Naruto's big sister came to tuck him in. The Uzumaki didn't really need her to do that, but he knew she liked it. Plus, if he was honest with himself, he loved it too. He just didn't want anyone calling him a baby. "Good night, little ninja," Izumi said, kissing him on his forehead. "Are you excited? Your birthday is in 3 weeks." Naruto hadn't really given thought to that. He had been so busy with training and spying, his special day had crept up on him. He would start the academy with Hinata and Sakura in only a couple of weeks. Izumi herself would be going to attend her last year since it was already decided by the clan and Hokage she could graduate a year early. Getting nothing more than a tired shrug from her brother, Izumi sighed exasperatedly at the ceiling. Ever since Naruto had come to live with them, she had tried to make a big deal about his birthday, but he never seemed interested. He liked his friends coming over and having cake and ice cream, but he never cared to have a large party like some of the clan heirs did. Izumi just rubbed his head and left. She had to get up early tomorrow and met Hana Inuzuka for an intensive training spat. Maybe she could take Naruto, he and Kiba could play together. The two boys hung out okay but never seemed to click. Naruto watched silently as his big sister left. His eye once more glanced back to the picture of him and Baisho. Anger began to feel the young Jinchuriki's chest as he thought about the truth of his older brother's overtime. The Uchiha clan had begun to collect money by doing illegal jobs. They would aid criminals with smuggling contraband and sometimes murdering their clients' competition. He had to look the word contraband up in a dictionary to know what it meant. There were 3 Uchiha civilians involved, the go-between people for the clan and unsavory clients, that were directing Baisho and giving him the jobs, and tonight was no exception. The 3 men seemed to be working independently of Lord Fugaku. They were sleazy, overweight fat bastards that gave Naruto the creeps. The kind of wealthy rich assholes that thought because of their money the world was theirs to do with what they pleased. Naruto wasn't sure exactly what the shipment Baisho was overseeing tonight was, and in truth wasn't too sure what most of the products were. Kiba, Choji, and Shikamaru had mentioned that contraband could be anything from alcohol and drugs to stolen pottery. Naruto didn't think his older brother would be guarding vases though. The Uchiha civilians and Baisho talked in code mostly when they discussed their clients. That was smart on their part since it meant someone like the little Uzumaki spy didn't have a complete idea about what was going on. He thought feedstock was the code word for opiates, another word he had to look up, but he wasn't sure since it could also mean illegally obtained beef. The little boy closed his eyes and concentrated on the jutsu markers Baisho was wearing. Naruto had tagged many people and their belongings within the Uchiha clan. This allowed him to spy on everyone or protect everyone at a moment's notice. His older brother had left the village and was making his way east towards the coast. He would be there within the hour at his current pace. The young boy sighed sadly. It wasn't Baisho's fault, not entirely anyway. Ever since he lost his shinobi license, his older brother had been forced to serve the will of the Uchiha clan. His skill and readily availability made him the perfect localized tool to carry out secret missions. It also didn't help the clan had just suffered a heavy lose. Uchiha Shursui had recently been found dead on a riverbank. The official cause was suicide, but no one believed that for a second. Some within the clan believed Itachi had something to do with it, and some believe the village had him killed because he was getting too famous and strong. Old man Hokage, however, didn't know who was responsible, and the elders didn't either, or they weren't saying if they did. Naruto was ashamed of himself. He had taken it upon himself to watch over the Uchiha and protect them from themselves, and the village from their ambitions. Now one was dead on his watch, and he didn't know the circumstances behind it or why. Even with his space/time spying technique, he couldn't be everywhere at one time. It made him wonder just how much more he missed. That was why he had gotten help, or rather made something to help him. Itachi and Shursui had given him the idea actually. He had gone with Izumi to watch them spar once and saw the older Uchiha using crows during substitution jutsu. When he asked what they were doing, Shursui explained how they had trained birds to help them. It hadn't taken Naruto long to find some eggs. He had read a basic animal handler's guide which suggested hatching the eggs with one's own chakra. This created a basic trusting link between the ninja and animal to be used. What had happened was Naruto's Yin/Yang release had built the crows up in their eggs and hatched them in a day. The fully mature birds had an unusual way of always understanding exactly what Naruto needed them to do. They lived in the wild unless the Uzumaki summoned them to his side. Each one had a jutsu marker and summoning marker in its beak. If Naruto put a decent amount of chakra in the summons, they could appear large enough to carry a full-grown man. Most summons worked this way actually. In their homes they were large, but when summoned their size could multiply by 100 times. The little boy believed it had something to do with nature energy, but had no way of confirming the theory. Naruto had one following Itachi now, and if they saw or felt anyone suspicious, he would know immediately. Enough is enough, Naruto thought to himself. I'll follow Baisho and guilt him into doing the right thing. His brother couldn't be all bad, and Naruto was tired of failing. In almost 4 years he hadn't really achieved anything to help either the village or the Uchiha clan. All he'd done was get stronger. Now was the time to use that strength. It was his older brother. How bad could this be? Smoke Harbor, 1 o'clock in the morning. Baisho watched bored as the men loaded the shipment. Some he knew were employed and others forced. They all smelt like garbage and needed baths. Only about a tenth of the cargo remained to be loaded and things were going smoothly. It was almost over. There had been a delay with the port master, but the Uchiha officer took care of it. The greedy old fool wanted more money than what was agreed upon after seeing the size of the shipment. He was now sitting at the bottom of the ocean floor. He had been alive when his weighed-down ass was thrown in, but there was no doubt he ran out of air by now. Sir, one of the lackeys asked, scared. It wasn't every day you watched a shinobi throw another man wrapped in heavy chains 300 yards out to sea. Some of the shipment escaped. Show me, was all the Uchiha said. He was not in the mood for this. Meanwhile, a crow landed on the warehouse overlooking the harbor. A hole appeared beside the black bird as a young red-headed boy walked out dressed in the same outfit his sister bought him when he was 4. Naruto figured looking a little like Izumi might help him sway his brother. He looked around at the docks to see several dirty men working quickly to load 2 separate ships. He was curious about the area as the Uzumaki had never once seen it on a map. The small port was only 2 large warehouses built long ways to the water, beside one large wooden dock. There was a small town that surrounded the place that had little more than 20 small houses. Naruto himself was on top of the first warehouse looking down at the dock. He walked towards the back of the roof, opposite the dock, and looked down. A man was smoking a pipe and reading a paper under the outside light. Naruto opened a wormhole behind the guy and pulled him through with his left arm. The young boy was aware of his Herculean strength, and took great care to not hurt the man any more than necessary. He had him in a paralysis genjutsu so he couldn't talk or move. He channeled chakra through another seal on his arm and watched as the terrified eyes of his hostage turned vacant. What is this place? I've never seen it on a map, Naruto said while trying to act tough in a shaky voice. It didn't matter as the man had no ability to resist answering the question. In a monotone voice he explained. This is Smoke Harbor. It is a hidden dock supported by the Leaf Village and Hokage. It doesn't appear on a map because the Hokage deems it so. A genjutsu barrier seal keeps anyone from seeing it at a distance, so passing ships never know it's here. It is home to a few civilian workers that run it for a monthly check and free board. Families aren't permitted because of the need for secrecy. Naruto looked around again at his surroundings. If the Hokage knew about this place, then what was his brother doing here illegally shipping contraband? He turned to the mindless tattletale and asked him about Baisho. Some smugglers and gangsters use this place off the books. The former harbor master would take a cut of whatever is shipped in or out to keep silent. Right now, a shipment of drugs, money, stolen jewels, and slaves are being shipped out. The civilians were paid to help, but the pirates also have press gang workers. Naruto heard a small child crying and another girl pleading with someone. She was asking to be let go. The Uzumaki quickly knocked his captive out with a pulse of chakra and went to investigate. Laying down on his stomach and peering out at the dock, the redhead saw a brown-haired girl of 15 holding another girl of 7 in her arms. "Please let us go. We're all our grandfather has left. He's sick and he needs us, please." A big-bellied man walked up and slapped her hard in the face. "You'll shut up and get back in the cargo hold if you know what's good for you. You and that little runt in your arms is worth a lot of money in the Nagi Islands." "What's all this now?" a man said coming off the boat frowning. Naruto saw he was dressed in nice fancy clothes. He walked up to the two girls and one goon. "And then nothing, Captain. Just two slaves trying to escape," the goon said nervously. The captain checked both girls over and noticed the bruise on the elder's face. "Look at this, Suki," he said disappointedly. "You've ruined the merchandise." The captain then spun quickly and put a dagger through the man's throat. He looked back at the boat and saw his cargo watching. There will be no more escape attempts. Anyone tries to escape will die only after suffering and choosing 2 other slaves to join him or her. He then led both crying girls to a large rusted chain sitting on the docks. It appeared to have been discarded there some time ago. Both screaming girls were tied to it and pushed into the ocean, while Baisho watched on impassively. The Fuinjutsu user kept hoping his older brother would do something. Seeing it was up to him, Naruto acted quickly. Baisho was close enough for the tags on his body to reach the girls. The Uzumaki opened a wormhole next to himself that created a rift underwater where he sensed the children. The pressure from the ocean pouring out through the hole washing both girls onto the roof beside him. The captain was about to address the remaining crew and captives when he heard the noise. "What's that?" he asked angrily. The corrupt Uchiha wasted no time in activating his Sharingan but saw no one. He quickly made his way to the rooftop as the captain boarded the ship. The crew finished loading the cargo and began to pull anchor. Baisho's eyes narrowed as he saw the water stain on the roof. The air was unnaturally heavy with the smell of salt. What had happened here? Sensing a presence on the other side of the building, the Uchiha quickly investigated. He found a worker unconscious due to genjutsu. Damn, he thought. Who had been here and how much had they seen? Just outside of Leaf Village. Naruto looked over the two girls closely to make sure there were no injuries. Both sisters were panting for air while holding each other. The oldest turned to thank her savior but found no one there. The boy had already left. A clearing deep in the woods. Naruto stood looking up at the half-moon in the sky. Never did the small child think things with his brother could be this bad. He somewhat understood doing illegal activities to support the clan, even if in no way did he agree with it, but to let innocent people suffer, to allow children to die to make a point, was pure evil. The child's hands balled into tight fists. He thought about Izumi, his innocent older sister, who would be judged by the village for the Uchiha's treasonous acts. He thought about Sakura, Hinata, Hanabi, Choji, Kiba, Shikamaru, and everyone else that could die for the Uchiha's ambition. He thought about the orphans in the orphanage, where he used to live, that had no one to protect them when the likes of those pirates came to steal them away for a quick payday. Baisho was just as guilty as they were. Worse than that, he had been a shinobi of Hidden Leaf. The very people he once swore to protect now suffered because he put the Uchiha first. He would murder the village if it meant the Uchiha thrived. From the depths of Naruto's chakra, Kurama stirred. He opened one great red slit eye as the fury of his host grew. He chuckled to himself at the possible long-awaited use of his chakra to weaken the seal. Then he paused as he realized something was wrong. From the halls of the small child's chakra network came a power he hadn't felt since he was a small kid newly made. The sheer power of his father crashed upon the fox's cage as the reservoirs of untapped power were opened. The water crashed violently against the walls, and in the depths of darkness the great Kurama laughed. Finally, someone worthy of the sage's might. Back at the docks, Baisho watched impatiently as the first ship sailed away with its slave cargo. The captain was taking it, and the mostly press-gang crew, to the Nagi Islands to sell on the black market. The Uchiha knew from stories that he would take liberties for most of the slaves, and not just the girls. The second ship, an all-pirate crew, would be heading in the opposite direction, carrying the jewels and money to a small grove of islands not far from Hidden Mist. Criminals pay protection money to the water daimyo to live without being hunted by authorities. Long as they didn't hurt the land of water, then they were left alone. As the final crate of stolen goods was being loaded aboard the second ship, there came a massive oppressive feeling of bloodlust. Every pirate and corrupt worker on the dock, and the second ship, dropped to their knees helpless. Baisho found he had a hard time breathing. From the far left side of the dock came a loud cry from a voice the Uchiha recognized. Wind style, devastating vacuum bullets. 4. Baisho's Sharingan came alive as a multitude of small condensed vacuum air pockets came streaking across the air. The number of projectiles was almost 4 times that of what Danzo had used in their spar. Each air pocket left a visible wake in the air as they flew forth to destroy. The ship, crew, and cargo were decimated by the attack and thrown to the depths of the harbor. The pirates still on the docks were ripped apart limb from limb, and their bodies splashed across the wooden planks. Baisho managed to smash his way through the wooden dock in time to take refuge under the sea. He quickly swam to where the wood met the bank and smashed his way out. He stood just inside the right side warehouse door. Hearing footsteps approaching from behind him, the white-haired man turned to see his little brother walking out of the shadows. Baisho noticed he was wearing the sleeveless shirt and shinobi paints that Izumi used to dress him in. He had no ninja tool kit, and his arms were bare for the world to see. For the first time ever, the Uchiha was looking at the jutsu Naruto created tattooed on his skin. He wasn't a complete fool. Baisho was aware that Ojo had been teaching Naruto, and together they made a medical jutsu that saved Hitomi. 5. He had no idea about the other arm though. That was impressive, Naruto, the older boy said in his monotone voice, trying to act calm. May I ask what you're doing here and how did you follow me? The time for talking has passed, brother, Naruto said with cold venom. No trace of the shy and polite child that he was at heart showed itself. Instead, what stood before Baisho was an Uzumaki fully committed to battle. Only one thing is guaranteed. Tomorrow, Izumi cries for one of us. The arrogant Uchiha was about to retort when he was forced to dodge a white and red kunai. He traced the flight and realized shocked that it was peppermint, and not steel. What tricks are you pulling, Naruto? He asked confidently even as his danger sense screamed at him. He ducked as the kunai returned point first, almost impaling the base of his skull. He watched curiously as it floated beside his brother. You never cared enough to pay attention to me, Baisho, Naruto stated through clenched teeth. That will be to my advantage. What do you know of combat, brat? The angry Uchiha asked quietly. What advantage could you have over an elite Uchiha such as me? Naruto held his left hand up in the sign for focus as large amounts of cocoa came pouring out of his shirt. It pooled at his feet and began to lazily circle around him on the ground. Baisho, getting tired of waiting for an attack, launched himself across the warehouse floor. The chocolate came up faster than he anticipated to block his left-hand jab. His follow-up right was also easily stopped too. Pushing off, he tried a powerful spin kick that proved to be a mistake. The cocoa formed a hand that grabbed his leg and threw him across the floor with tremendous force. The warehouse was empty for the most part, but the few boxes that still darted the ground hurt when the Uchiha smashed through them. Baisho recovered quickly only to front flip over Naruto as he used Shunshin and his peppermint kunai to attack him with the wind-style vacuum blade. 6. From what his Sharingan told him, the peppermint acted just like chakra metal forged steel. In other words, it was perfect for elemental channeling. Seeing Naruto was open to attack, the older boy aimed a kick to the base of his little brother's skull. Just as his foot was about to make contact, the cocoa blocked seemingly from nowhere. Growling in frustration, Baisho gained some distance from the Uzumaki. The Uchiha fully used his eyes to analyze what his brother was doing. It wasn't a trick. The kid was actually using candy in the form of jutsu. This had to be Fuinjutsu related, but Baisho didn't understand enough about the obscure art to make a true guess. Your skills are impressive, Naruto. I'm guessing Master Ojo taught you well. Naruto frowned. No, you are the first person to see my full capability. Ojo Gigi has no idea what I can do. This really threw Baisho for a loop. If that was true, then Naruto was almost entirely self-taught. How was it possible? Enough, the Uchiha thought. It's time to end this farce of a battle. Going through hand signs, Baisho unleashed one of his strongest fire jutsu. Fire release, Phoenix Flash Destroyer. A large bird of fire made its way towards Naruto, setting the building ablaze. The redhead made 2 hand signs and a large wall of solid chocolate burst from the ground. When the fire hit the wall, it melted and smothered the fire. Another hand sign from Naruto, and the boiling hot thick chocolate became a rushing attack that speed towards Baisho. Impossible! Baisho thought frantically as he dodged the burning globs of death. He countered my most powerful fire jutsu with this shit. Baisho channeled chakra to his feet and jumped straight up to the roof. He looked around for Naruto but didn't see him anywhere. He noticed the walls start to glow an ominous blue as various bomb tags began to light up. He covered the whole room that quickly,